Shirt show. All right, let's go.
Shirt show! Talking shirt! Shirt show! Talking shirt! Shirt show! Talking shirt! Shirt show! Shirt man!
All right! Episode 133 of Shirt Show. We're talking with Jeffrey from Youngwon in South Korea. Let's go!
What's up, doggy?
Hey, dude. How are you feeling?
Oh, I feel a little less like hot garbage today.
You look like a little less like hot garbage.
Right, like flush and just like pasty and sweaty. And I like how we both had gray and black today in mind.
Yeah. We're coordinated as always. And some people find that attractive. Not the coordination part, but all those things you described about how you look, you know, some people like that.
Like dead.
Yeah. Yeah. So, I mean, I'm glad you're feeling a little better because when we almost recorded, what was it, a couple of days ago, and then we had technical difficulties. You were trying to do it from home and
It was a fucking disaster.
And you started, I could tell for the first time in our friendship, I sensed you were getting irritated. Like not with just life happening around you, but with me just a little bit, because you came back after I told you for the, I don't know, 1 billionth time that I couldn't, what was happening? Oh, you were like, we were getting this echo from the mic you were using. You went and got some other headphones. As you're coming back, you were like, I got the bird from you.
Well, yeah, I wasn't angry. I was just angry at life. Dude, I don't know what this fucking flu thing, but like, this is the worst sick I've ever been. Like, I don't even remember what it was. Tuesday, had scratchy throat and cough, worked, put a mask on, but worked. And then by lunch, I was like had the chills and I was like, I gotta go home, laid in bed, fever. And I had a fever basically from then till Thursday. Just like a hardcore headache, fever, body aches, like in and out of weird ass fucking fever dreams.
This is just an observation because I hear.
And you're like, hey, let's record an episode on Wednesday.
No, we were already, that was scheduled. That wasn't just spontaneous. Hey, let's record an episode.
I know. I was trying. I'm just saying I was in the middle of that.
Yeah.
And I was trying. Like, I didn't have my setup. I was at home. I had fucking makeshift. I had my son's headphones. I had some fucking travel mic that's apparently bullshit.
Yeah, you're dedicated. You're fucking you're the real deal. Like, you're the whole package.
Trying.
Yeah, I acknowledge that there was a lot of effort there and you were like going to power through, push through.
Dude, the fucking gods were looking down on me because as soon as he had issues with his headphones, I was like, dear Lord, this is my out.
I saw you not, like normally if somebody's having issues, like, hey bud, no sweat.
Take your time.
Yeah,
he was like, let's reschedule. And I was like, yes, let's do that.
He had like one shot and it was over.
Yeah.
That's okay. And he understood too. So we will, actually we're doing that tomorrow. Yeah, it's all set for tomorrow. But yeah, so here we are. You're feeling better. This is good. I went online to buy you some soup because I know how much you love
Jesus Christ.
Soup. And I went to Amazon and I was like, I had the perfect soup because I like this Rouse. It's RAOS. They make
arousal soup.
Yeah, that's what it is. Exactly. I mean, if you're sick, this is what you need. It comes with a little porn DVD. Do they have those anymore?
Fucking love that. I'm not even kidding. If you could make that happen, I would be all for it.
Well, I almost did. Soup. I had it in the cart and then like it said to Shirt Kong, I you know how I had the default address. So it says, be there in 2 hours. I'm like, yeah. This is fucking awesome. But then I put your address in there and it said, be there. We don't know.
Like after Christmas.
Yeah,
right.
We don't deliver there. Only
Dude,
once
I got so much food this week. I don't know why. Like, I love everybody.
I know.
Thank you so much for stuff.
I want to show you something that we received today from Stephen Campus Inc. It's tradition here. We don't appreciate it or like it. We wish he wouldn't do it, but this is an empty box.
I got 5 bags of Arby's from him today.
Dude, he must like you better. Like, of course, this is punishment. You send this to somebody, unless your name's Jimmy.
I don't know. I kind of would like that. I got the equivalent of that, but at Arby's, it was like 5 bags of sliders.
Yeah, that's good. Arby's, I would say it was a step up. Now look at this. So I wanted to show you this.
Steven, I appreciate it. I fucking thought it was delicious.
Yeah, because you got Arby's. Stephen, I do appreciate this. We have taken several photos. Kyle, I went to Kyle. So Stephen texted me last night. He said, tell Kyle not to bring lunch. Of course, I didn't text that to Kyle because I want Kyle to have some nutrition in his lunch. I'm looking out for the guy. And then I told him today, I was like, Kyle, he has no control when it comes to White Castle. So I'm like, dude, don't have more than 2. Promise me. I go there may or may not be some White Castle, a suitcase of White Castle coming. And I said, just limit yourself to 2, man. You can do it. But this is what I wanted to show you.
And the box.
Yeah, he ate them all. So, but Stephen, thank you very much. It's very kind of you. And you have seriously.
Did you get Frank cookies today?
You have such a heart. I got Frank's cookies yesterday. He sent mine out first. Look at the I wanted to see this registration on this fucking thing.
It's perfect. It's flawless.
Like, look at the, hold on. Look at that.
That's real good.
So when Kyle and I looked at this, we rejected it immediately when they tried to deliver it. I'm just like, get that fucking box out of here. Uh-huh. That's not a real print job. But I got
Tom and Maggie heard that I was sick, and then the very next day I got this like big box of like soups and
how did they do that?
And bread, and
I tried.
It was in the mail. It was like some service that shipped it, and it like came here to the shop. And if someone sent me like half a ham, and Honey then mix? Today I got and then I got Arby's. Was that from you?
No, was it really honey baked?
Yeah.
You don't know who it was from?
I don't know who it was from. It's just in the fridge. Someone was like, they sent you a ham, and I was like, okay, that's awesome.
Yesterday,
and then, you got fruit yesterday, right?
Yeah, we got edibles.
Fuck yeah, dude, that's awesome.
I keep calling them edibles. So
edible arrangement.
It's misleading. Yeah. Mm-hmm. We got some edibles yesterday from E2, from Don and Joe at E2 Embroidery in Kansas City.
It's awesome. Those good.
Frank said it, like you said, Frank sent us a bunch of cookies, and he knows that cookies are my favorite. I just love fucking cookies. I'm staring at him now.
You love fucking cookies? It's disgusting.
Chad told me not to. He was like, Andy, enough with the show and tell. Quit doing it. People can't. It's very boring. But look,
I don't think it's boring.
Look at this, Frank.
I know.
Got a ribbon on it. Look at all those good looking cookies. Can't wait to fuck them later.
I knew that was your thing. I feel bad for all those customers that get those cookies now.
Yeah, but yeah, it feels.
You know what we were talking about the other day? We were talking about how Dave Portnoy had that open PO box.
Yeah.
He just got like fun things from his listeners.
Yeah, he would have a box opening party.
Can you guys do that for us?
Mm-hmm. But it doesn't have to be fancy things, just very weird.
Any weird things that you think we would like, send to us, please.
Yeah, and we'll have
my address party. Is on my website. Andy's is on his. Just send us weird shit, please.
Please.
We will show it on the show.
Yeah, well, happy Friday, Dylan.
Yeah, fucking thank God.
Yeah, right?
Feels like it's good. A waste of a week. Feel like a garbage human.
You look.
I got work done. I got work done for my laptop, but I wish I was here, like getting shit done. Mm-hmm. And then we had the massive fucking snowstorm last night, and I spent all morning clearing snow. Like I literally just finished. I have my big ass boots on.
What's that mean, massive?
I don't know. Well, it wasn't like it was a lot of snow, but it was mostly like really heavy, wet snow. So it like a lot of trees come down, and like it's bad for like your roofs and It's just heavy to move. But luckily I have that big badass snowblower here. It fucking took it like a champ.
Like a foot of snow or how much? 6 inches?
No, I don't know how much it was. It was maybe like 10 or 12.
That's
10,
a lot.
Maybe.
Yeah.
But it was like real heavy. Jesus Christ. Did you hear that?
What was that?
Snow falling off the roof.
That was planned.
No, it wasn't.
Well, over here at Shirkong, let me tell you, it has some serious pippage going on for real, like for real slowdown. I'm okay with it.
It's that time of year.
Yeah, it is that time of year. We ran 2 presses all morning. Third one hasn't run all week. And then I think maybe we're just running 1 the rest of today.
Yeah, we have enough to like fill next week, and then that's pretty much it because we're taking the next week off. So
yeah, we're same thing. Are you doing the same as I am with the holiday PTO?
Yeah, I just pay everybody to have that week off.
Yeah.
Boners. Yeah, it'll be good. I think everyone needs a break. It's been a year.
Yeah. You have any drama going on up there?
Just a little bit, but it's to be expected. It's not anything bad. Like, I don't know. I told you we're going through a little bit of changes. We put some people in management positions, and when you do one-on-ones and try to look for things that we've kind of let slip for too long, and then you bring them up and, make light of those things, they turn into issues. So we're dealing with that, but things are getting better.
Well,
what you got there?
I have an I almost said iWatch, Apple Watch.
Oh, you finally traded in for your whatever you had, your Garmin or whatever the hell you had?
No, I did that this summer, and on I don't know, a week ago, on Sunday, doesn't matter. Last weekend, it started to act funny. I would touch it and wouldn't respond. Talking about my watch, I would touch it and I got nothing, no response.
At that
age. And then it started doing all kinds of other crazy shit, and it died. Completely died. So I went to the Apple store. This is customer service right here. So I went to the Apple store. First of all, I had to make an appointment, and we have a couple of stores here in St. Louis. And so I made one at a mall, and I went there, and here's what I didn't like is I made my appointment for 5:30, and I got there early, like a good customer. And they're like, nope, can't check in until 10 minutes before your scheduled time. So I'm like, son of a. But anyway, so I finally check in. That's the only bad part. The guy helps me and says, well, we're going to have to send it off to get it to repairs. I'm like, okay, cool. I don't have Apple Care, and I just have, the regular year warranty. I go, okay, cool. So what does that mean? Because I want to have a watch, So he's like, I don't know. There's no guarantees for time right now. I said, okay, well, how much if I just trade it in? Like, let's say I just forget it. I'll just trade it in. I'll take a new watch. And he goes, well, if it's in good shape, $70. If it's damaged, $10. So I go, it's in good shape, right? He goes, well, it's not working.
Right.
So $10. I go, $10. Like, you're going to give me $10 for that motherfucker. So I said no. And I said, so fine,
well,
fine.
Hold on. It's the same thing that I did with Grayson's watch when he dropped it in the fucking parking lot the next day after I bought it. Is
the very next day.
I told you that story, right?
I can't remember.
I bought him the watch, and then he didn't like the color. So he was like, Dad, I really want this other one. So I was like, fine, whatever. We fucking went to Verizon the next day, and he took it off his wrist in the parking lot, dropped it, shattered the screen.
Oh no.
So they wouldn't take it back. They wouldn't take it back.
No. Yeah,
so what I ended up doing is I ended up buying another watch, like you did, like bought a watch. But then I used the insurance that I had to fix the other one. So, and then I deactivated it after I got the new watch back, and now I can sell that watch because it's brand new.
Dude, that's pretty tricky. I like it. That's smart. Here it is. So here's the rest of the story. So they say, I say, okay, cool. I leave. And then I get an email that says, hey, your watch is going to be, it's off to the repair store. It's going to be ready by the 18th. And I'm like, wow, that's really cool. Cause this is on the 12th or whatever. I go, or 11th
18th of January?
No, December. Right. So that's super fast, like just a few days. I'm like, this is incredible. And then I get the next email and it said,
just kidding.
Here's your tracking replacement watch on its way. Like they couldn't fix it.
Right.
Brand spanking new iWatch.
Nice. So can we be buddies on there now so we can track each other's steps and
you can do that?
We can compete with each other? Yeah.
Yeah, of course. Yeah, let's do it.
So I didn't know you could do that. Each other's things. You can watch me all day and see what my heart rate is and my steps. And
I can listen to you also, maybe?
Yeah, you can listen into my conversations.
Look at this thing. It's all new.
Wow.
It's in plastic and everything.
It's so
that's awesome. Pretty cool of them. Yeah. All right. Well, anyway, enough of that. That gets probably boring. Yeah. Well,
before you do Frank, last night, like, I don't know how your dreams are when you have fever dreams, but do you have like kind of similar ones every time you have a fever? Like, do you have like a recurring dream that's just like, it always happens and it's like, it's only when you're sick?
No, not that I am aware of. No.
I feel like my whole life when I get sick and I have a fever dream, it's always something super repetitive. Like it's like a dream about, I don't know, it could be whatever, but it's just like repetitiveness. And it's always a competition. Like it's always like, you have to do this and add this and add this, but it's just gets really annoying after a while because it's like all night you wake up, you have that dream, you go back to sleep, you have the same dream over and over again. So anyway, I had a dream last night. I don't know. And it had Jared in it from AKT.
He's going to love hearing that. Yeah. What was he doing?
Well, I'm just saying that like me and him send each other reels back and forth on Instagram of like just shit that's like that, like manufacturing that's just like really awesome and like repetitive or like it's just like cool manufacturing techniques that like we didn't know really existed and it's just cool to see, or like lawn care stuff where it's like perfect crispy lines and shit. Like we're both into that stuff. And like, you ever have that time where like you think of this amazing, like you put things together and you have this amazing idea and you're like, I gotta hurry up and write this down because I'm gonna fucking forget this. Like I like literally had a dialogue, like a speech in my mind, said the whole thing out, and I was like, this is fucking flawless. And then I went to go write it down and I botched it horribly. Like it's not even close to what I wanted it to be.
Can you read it for us?
Yeah, but it's just like I had the fever dream about Jared, and then the repetitive. This is what I wrote down: repetitive acts. We always share manufacturing reels. Weird and impressive. I said, people like that push this industry forward. Like, and I was thinking of like Jared and like, you know, all these people in our group chats and people in the Discord and all this other stuff. And I was like, we always talk about how on Shirt Show and all these other things that like us sharing ideas is what like moves the industry forward. You know what I mean? But it's just kind of like a generalized, like, yeah, fucking whatever, we're helping each other out, but you never really say exactly how. And it's like, when I had that dream and I woke up, it was kind of like, it hit me of like, we are sharing information in these chats, like, especially like our own group chat. And it's like, someone will be like, oh, I'm having this issue. And someone's like, oh, this is how I fixed it. And then you take that person's word who says this is how they fixed it. And you're like, oh, that's awesome. But then the next person chimes in and is like, yeah, I did that too. But then I did this and like fix that on top of this. And then I did this. And then you end up with this thing at the end where you're like, holy fuck, dude. Like we just solved this thing for everyone in this group that like we were all in the same thing. And it's like, that's what this is on a scale like that, is all these people that are involved in the industry, not just sitting back and just like trying to do this thing, but are involved. Like we're growing and changing this industry so much by like just fucking talking to each other and helping each other and just doing that. And I don't know, I had this whole fucking speech in my mind when I had a fever, and like I'm trying to put it into words now, but I just like was so annoyed for 3 days on these dreams. And then at the last one, when I'm not having any more fevers today, I had this like thing of like, oh my God, like this weird manufacturing dream made me realize, and just, I wanted to say thank you is all to like all these people that we talk to, because we're all super helping each other out with all these things.
I mean, it makes sense. I think that next time we should record when you have the fever, because then it would be,
right.
Yeah.
I'll just from my bed, like record it from my phone.
Yeah, it would flow. But I totally get what you're saying. And I think you're right. It used to be that people had all of these ways of doing things within their shop, and it was a secret because they were either paranoid of competition or whatever. But they realized that, if you share how you do things and you have that open conversation with other shops, then it rising tide raises all ships, right? So that's perfect.
Right. But it's just all that stuff. It's like, there's so many things in your shop that you can personally, like, even if you wanted to be a selfish dick about it, like if you're sharing with other people, you're going to learn so much more about your own shop that you couldn't have before. It's not like you're just giving away all your information. You're taking in so much more. Like you're learning shit you never would have before.
It's give and take. Yeah.
Yeah.
Totally is.
Okay. Now we can do Frank. Sorry.
Yeah. No, don't apologize. I think that it was, it makes a lot of sense. I had a dream. Like 2 or 3 weeks ago, I had a dream with Brett Bowden in it. And the next day, I didn't have a fever or anything. This is just normal Andy. And I had this dream with Brett Bowden in it where, I don't know why, but we were at a mall and we were coming up this escalator. And we got to the very top, not Brett,
you were behind
but
him?
Me and Joanne. We were coming up the escalator, and then we got to the very top. And then Brett and his whole family, because he's got like a bunch of kids, and his wife and everything, they were coming like to go down the escalator. And we were like, "Hey, what's up?" And he was like, "Hey, what's up?" And we were in the same city, for I don't even know.
That was the whole dream.
Reason, but yeah. And so I texted him. I said, "Hey, Brett, I had a dream about you last night." And he replied back. He goes, "That's fun." And then he didn't ask what it was about.
Because he was afraid.
Yeah, he didn't want to know. He was like, "Oh shit!" You
ever see those? You ever see those reels of like people going up the escalator next to another one that's going down, and they
touch,
do something weird. They like touch and rub their hands and stuff.
Yeah,
and they can't do anything about it because they're going the opposite way. I thought that's where you were going to go with this.
No, I wish. Oh no, here's what he said. I texted him. I said, "You were in my dreams last night," and he said, "That's fun. Was I a magician?" And then he didn't ask what he really was.
So and you just left it like that?
No, what did I say? I said something like, he probably, whatever my reply was, it probably wasn't good, very good. And so he was like, I'm done with this guy.
Yeah. All right. We got 2 minutes.
Well, you asked what it was. Hold on. I said, "Did you have the same dream?" Exclamation. Like he was right, but he wasn't a magician.
He was a musician.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm. Okay, you ready?
Gotta hurry.
Dude, start that over. I'm not that fast right now.
It all starts with a strain, and whether it's new stretches or restretches, Frank and his team do it the fucking best.
Best human right there.
To find out more, go to graphicscreenfashion.com, FFFFF.
Rank.com.
Or
greatfuckingscreens.com.
Cleaning screens is no fun, but EasyWay makes it way, way funner. Their line of eco-friendly chemicals will keep your screens and your shop clean. Check them out at easyway.com. EasyWay.
They'll keep your shit clean. It's the easiest way.
Mm-hmm. Well, man, I was going so good and then derailed. Action Engineering makes all kinds of accessories printers need. Go check them out at actionengineering.com and level up your
shop.
That's right. Dylan, do you have too much art? Do you suck at art? Yes. Do you need help with complicated SEPs? Or are you just having are you just having
fucking dig fest?
Are you just having a bad day and want to feel better about the world? Then you are going to want to go to 1-900-HOTStuff.com and get in touch with
Nika Lucas.
Exactly.
Do it.
I'm sorry. You all your stuff, like you are really, really good at art. I should be like hyping you up
use
right
me,
now because you don't
use me as your punching bag, Andy.
You don't feel good. You don't feel good.
That's what I'm here for sometimes.
No. The last thing you want to hear is my smart ass saying shit.
I love when you have good smart ass comments.
Choosing the right emulsion for your shop is complicated. And that's why we love Chromaline. Go to chromaline.com to watch Kevin's videos and learn a whole bunch about the screen room.
Mm-hmm. I hope Jeffrey has gray and black on. That would fucking rule. See here.
Jeffrey, by the way, is who we're chatting with, and his full name is Jeffrey Paul. And Eric from Night Owls describes him as fascinating.
Hello,
which I think that's a really perfect word for Jeffrey, because I agree. He's fascinating. Every time I've heard him, which was on Printavo's podcast, and then also at Vegas, he was up on stage with 5 or 6 other people, and they were talking shop. I was blown away, and so that's when we chatted with him afterwards, and you asked him, yeah, we hooked up. You said, let's do a show. And so check this out. He is director of global printing at Youngwon, which is a publicly traded company headquartered in South Korea. Its factories are in 5 different countries, and they have a team of 90,000 employees.
It's disgusting.
I was talking to Tori from New Duds yesterday. We were talking Monday, Monday.com, and I said, so, hey, we have Jeffrey Paul on tomorrow. He's like, oh, cool. I go, guess how many, he's got like a giant shop, right? How many employees do you think? And Tori says 350, because when you say how, like, think of a giant shop, like that's where my head goes. 300, 400 people, like that's got to be huge, right? 90,000.
It's like a country.
I know. Like if you got big, if Upstate Merch grew to 90,000, you would have to import.
We were just talking to fucking that dude the other day who was saying Switzerland. What was the fucking hold on. Google population of Switzerland real quick.
Sweden.
Sorry.
Yeah. He said 6 million or 12 million, something like that. It was way more than 90,000.
No.
90.
Oh yeah. 10.42 million.
Yeah.
Still.
So yeah, that's who it is. He's here. You ready to go?
Sure. I'm going to have to mute us so many times to cough.
Are we recording? We didn't check.
Oh, stretch. Hey, check. I'm not very flexible, but I'm trying to be.
You look really cute in your gray and black.
Thanks, man. If you're still with us at this point after you listen to all of our bullshit, if you could like the video. Look at that picture. Oh, so little cute babe in there. I hope it's just that the whole time. It's all Christmased out.
Man, I need to step up my background game.
No,
what's going on here,
dude? What are you talking about? You got a Christmas tree and you got the news on.
What's on? Oh, yeah. Well, that's a depressing channel right now. That's not something I encourage people to watch right now.
The market's down, looks like.
Yeah, it's down 4% in the last week. I should do myself a favor and not watch that.
Well,
watch it once a month.
Well, I just withdrew all of my savings and put it in FTX like a few months back. So, there's nobody worse off, I guess, right?
I guess. Yeah. I mean, seriously.
No. He got arrested though. I saw. They actually cuffed him.
He did. He as often happens in those types of things. Somebody turned on him. I don't know if you saw, but his co-CEO, I think, saw the handwriting on the wall and decided, I need to get ahead of this. I want to be the one cooperating.
Right.
And good for the Bohemians. I feel like he probably bought a lot of look the other way-ishness there. But apparently wasn't enough. So anyway, well, hey guys, look, I appreciate you guys inviting me on here. I'm
Yeah.
I'm still learning my way through the worlds of podcasts and and all these things.
We're just here to shoot the shit. And before we go any further, what is that creepy ass Santa Claus you have under that tree? Because the thing is,
so is this over here, right here?
Nightmare fuel down there on the floor.
Right there. Okay. Well, good. So that is my.
You're about to tell me your kid made it or something, and I'm gonna feel horrible.
Close. No, you're gonna feel worse than if my kid made it. That was my wife's grandmother's Santa that she grew up with as a kid.
That's like what horror movies are made of, where it comes to life.
She passed away last month, and that literally just came in the mail, kind of from their estate sale. I thought you were going to talk about this guy, right? This guy is like a creepy, demented elf on the shelf kind of thing.
I can't even see it. The other one is just staring me down, and I don't like it. Is there a smaller version of it in its arms?
I think so. I can move that out of the way for you.
Dude, don't show it to me.
Woo! Look at this guy.
Dude. I don't like this at all. It's like The Ring or something. I mean, I don't have so many days to live now.
Kind of
I like it there. Yeah, I like that a lot.
Right there.
I think I'll probably end up blocking him, but he can occasionally peek around the corner.
Dude, if I see the other one move, I swear to God, I'm leaving.
Merry Christmas. So, no, yeah, I've got I have a 2 and a 4-year-old now. So Christmas is in full swing here. I'll give you my life story that you might or might not want to hear about. But long story short, I mean, I'm in my mid 45 now, and I have a 2-year-old. So I'm tired all the time. But I was married to my career and our industry for as long as I can remember. And then 39, met my wife, who in Seattle, who works at Nordstrom. And she'd never been married either, and we got married. And now we got 2 kids, and we'll be the what did we figure out the other day? I think we'll be like 62 when our youngest is senior in high school, right? So
perfect.
We'll be your granddad's coming up. No, that's my dad.
Nordstrom is one of my wife and I's favorite stores because, for one, their customer service is second to none. Like, for real.
Yeah.
So you can return anything there, like anytime you want, for no reason. They just no questions asked. You can return it. And I like that because we do something similar to that here. If you're upset, if you're unhappy with what a product or a service that you got from us, we want to make it right, and it doesn't matter if you bring that t-shirt back here in 4 months or 6 months and it has a hole in it. I mean, it's a t-shirt. It's going to get a hole in it eventually. Especially like if you're using it for construction or whatever, some lawn mowing service or whatever, and they return their shirts. And I'm like, well, yeah, you use it every day. It's $2.50 shirt and it's going to get messed up. I'll fix it. I'll print them a new one. And, if they feel like they're unhappy or whatever. And so I think that in Nordstrom's the same way. I learn from, like, when I'm out and about in the wild, I take notes and I learn from different experiences at different places. And Nordstrom is one that I think that everybody could really learn a lot from. They do it well.
They do. They try to get out in front of that. Nordstrom started as a shoe store, 100 years ago, whatever it was. And I think that, and of course, the family's still, actively running the company, the 2 great grandsons, I believe. And that was something that they've always done with when they were a shoe store, right? If they don't fit, if you don't like the way they feel, bring them back. And that idea of, if you don't like it after you bought it, has just proliferated across, Now I will say that, as a lot of us, unfortunately, there's a segment of our, population likes to take advantage of those kinds of things, right?
Sure.
And it's become even worse because we have a lot of shrinkage, right? I mean, I call it shoplifting, but the technical term is shrinkage. And through organized groups, and we're bringing it back, and gift card fraud and all these things. But I think that in fact, I do know that their written policy has actually changed, but they empower their people on the floor and these reps. If you bring something in, you've had it for 6 months, just like you said, they're going to make it right. And, I think that goes to them empowering those floor level people, to make decisions in real time. I think a lot of our airlines maybe could learn from that. I think all too often we hear of, some gate attendant or some flight attendant some story, and you're just like, if they had just been empowered to make a different decision there, that could have gone a whole lot differently and saved a whole lot of people a lot of headache. So anyway, no, but Nordstrom's been good. She's been there 20 years. Started on the floor right out of college, and then worked her way up now in the buying office. So kind of similar to my I guess my screen printing story. And I'd love to hear about everybody. I don't think anybody gets tired of hearing about where people came from and where they are.
No,
I think that helps people relate, and I'd love to hear about you guys.
What was your story? How did because Eric kind of filled me in a little bit, and he was all about it last night, trying to
Eric Solomon, not Eric.
Yeah.
Eric's a good guy. I spent a lot of time working with Eric. He brought me onto his board a couple of years ago, right at the beginning of the pandemic. So I guess he's getting some value from it. But I think one of the things that helps me relate well to Eric is, so I started. I'd like to tell people I've been screen printing for 32 years. So I told you how old I was earlier. So that means I started when I was 13, right? And I did. So my parents had a factory in Waco, Texas, which is where I grew up, and that was my after-school job, right? Cleaning wooden frames, 15 by 28 wooden manual frames. I think we had they had a Rotatex 4-color manual and a brown 6-color manual, and little leagues, choirs, church youth groups, all like just kind of local little leagues, local soccer leagues, all that stuff. And I hated every minute of it. That was my after school. I remember to this, kind of burned in my mind. I had this 5-gallon bucket that'd come in, I'd turn it over. That would be my seat. And I'd start pulling tape. I'd sit down and start pulling tape off of these screens and building up a big pile and making a ball like we all do. And putting it into this, I guess, an early dip tank full of mineral spirits. And I would put on a glove up to about right here and just start scrubbing with mineral spirits, and didn't think anything twice about it. We're a little smarter today, at least most of us are. I still see the occasional person on some group, I didn't get any better than mineral spirits, and it's only $3 a gallon, and good for you, man. More power to you. Tell OSHA hi. So I did that junior high and high school. Went to Baylor University there in Waco, and swore I was never going to be in the screen printing business. I did not want to be in that industry. Went to school, finished, and then went out in the corporate world for about a year and a half. And it didn't take me very long to realize that the corporate world was not what they told me it was going to be like in college, and maybe working in the family business wasn't so bad. So in 2001, I remember calling, maybe 2002, I remember calling my mom and had the comment, have you ever thought about me moving? At this point, I was living in Nashville, Tennessee. Have you ever thought about me working in the business? And, of course she had. And for people that have heard me tell the story, I apologize for having to listen to it all over again. But it was funny. It was the week before 2002 ISS Long Beach when I had this phone call. And of course, Mom, and it was like, I would love, yes, in fact, there's this trade show. I didn't really know what a trade show was back then. I'm 23, 25. I had no idea. She's like, we're heading out there. Can you fly out there and meet us? Absolutely. Flew to Long Beach. It might have been the first time I'd ever even been to Long Beach or LA. And went to the first ISS Long Beach 2002. And man, I walked into that same convention center, same place it's always been. I remember walking in there and going, it was this world that I had no idea existed in the world of screen printing. All I knew was, again, like the local Little League, right?
Right.
The high school band. And let me tell you, there's nothing wrong with that industry. You can make a great living serving that industry. But I just kind of had these kind of mom and small. When I went there and I saw, 18 head in Tajima embroidery machines. They had laser applique stuff going on back then. Seeing M&R back then, it would have been formulas and Gauntlet 2s, doing inline flock and foil, and I was hooked. I was absolutely hooked. I'd never seen anything like that. Ended up moving back to Waco, Texas 3 months after that. went to work in my family's business. At the time, we had those 2 manuals. About a year later, bought our first automatic M&R. Still remember this day. M&R 12 color Sportsman E.
So when you came to work with them, did you help improve the shop, or was it you were just like, hey, mom, dad, we need this, we need this?
I would, if I think if they were here, I think improve, it's rather subjective, right? I mean, did we grow? Did we bring in new equipment? Did we have more sales? Yes, and yes. Did that come with more headaches and more employees and more troubles and more loans and more debt? Yes, and yes. So we bought that first automatic, would have been 2003 Sportsman E, which at the time the E meant electric. When the Sportsman was first made, it was an all-air machine, right? And so we bought model number 2 of the first electric Sportsman. And man, once we bought that press, it was off to the races. I mean, I started calling on the fraternities and sororities at Baylor. We were getting into the license business. We had some inroads with some junior colleges. That first auto, 2003, bought 2 more autos. Let's fast forward so I don't bore you too much. 2009, we had 9 automatics, about 55 employees, and a ton of headaches. The most money we ever made, and I'll tell this to anybody listening, the most money we ever made, our highest profit was when we had 3 automatics. Somewhere between that 3 and 4, at least for us, kind of was a sweet spot. Now, our sales continued to grow, right? We were feeding those other 5, 6, 7. We were feeding the automatics, but we weren't making any more money.
Yeah, a theory of mine is your profit, like you just said, the most money you've ever made was around 3 autos. And I've always thought, my theory is anyways, between 2 and 3 autos. And then after that, you maybe don't make any more money. In fact, you can make less until you hit a certain, sales volume, or let's call it number of autos, which would be maybe in the 10 range or something, like 10 autos or 10 million, or even, because I always think in my head, like if you have an auto running, 40 hours a week would, if you do a baseline, will generate about $1 million, let's say. Right. And so you could have like 10 autos or $10 million, and then maybe it shifts, all of a sudden you're making more money again, because you have to grow as a business in so many ways as you scale. And we'll get to this later too, because you're at a shop now that I shouldn't call it a shop even. Like
it's a little different.
Yeah. Like which is incredibly, which potentially, I don't know, maybe you know this, it's probably one of the largest in the world, if not the largest.
Yeah, where our screen printing operation is not the largest in the world now. Some might say that our company as a whole, but like I said, let's get to that. I want to keep hearing about.
Yeah, keep going your story.
Yeah, what you're doing, you're absolutely right about the 10 autos, and although it might be different for everybody, our struggle was, and I think and this is for the majority, in my opinion, the majority of the shops out there, U.S. shops. The founders and owners are putting in so much sweat equity on that 1, 2, 3, and 4 auto shop. They're coming in early, staying late, working weekends. They're kind of a jack of all trades. If the screen guy doesn't come in, they can do the screens. We were able to get that up to a point. And at about 3 or 4 autos, we were able to kind of we could run the business, and by doing all these different things, what we couldn't do, and what we were not good enough operators to scale that business up profitably beyond that, because all the systems and processes that we had in place were built in a way that really was just supporting the owner, right? Mm-hmm. It was almost this kind of hub and spoke type of deal. You'd put this owner right in the middle, and you'd have all these little spokes that go off. You had an art guy that supported him, maybe an admin person, and they all kind of reported to this person in the middle. You can't scale that. You're going to get to a point where that just doesn't work. And we didn't realize it at the time. We didn't know what we didn't know, right? The kind of thing. We didn't know. Right. We also didn't know that we didn't know that we didn't know. Like, we weren't even smart enough to realize we didn't know we didn't know. We just thought this was just the way you run your business.
I see a lot of times, people talk about selling their business and, all that. If you have a hub and spoke organization, the value of your business is, at least in my opinion, is close to nothing, right? Because unless you're planning to sell your business and continue to work, there's no business there. There's no business without you based on that type of organization, right? And so anybody who's out there who's looking at buying businesses or just maybe just taking it over, they're going to want some sort of organization that doesn't need that owner to be there every day. I'll tell you someone who's done a great, Pierre at Blue Moon, he preaches this. He's done a fabulous job of building a business there that doesn't need him to be there. And there's a lot of value to that, but most entrepreneurs don't know how to not do it that way.
And I think most entrepreneurs, it's in addition to not knowing how, it's not even in their plans. They start the business. Like I didn't start this place with an exit strategy. I didn't say, I'm going to start Shirkong, and in 5 years I'm going to sell it, and so I need to put everything in place so that can happen. I mean, I started it to make a living, and to have fun and to do good work and all those sort of things. And then I think what happens to a lot of shop owners or operators is that along the way, at some point, they're like, wait, this is taking a toll, and I want to step back, and I want to maybe do less, or I want to sell it and do something else, and they're stuck, and it's something that you can't change in 30 days or in 6 months or something. You have to, if you're going to set it up so that you can do what you're talking about, where it doesn't just rely on me, then it could take a few years. It's hard. It's really hard to do.
I think it's one of those things, though, it's a catch-22, because I'm doing the same thing where, like, over the past couple of years, I've been delegating more things and putting managers in place to where I can step back and I don't have to be here as much because I've been doing a lot more traveling and all this other stuff. But it's also like, I miss some of that stuff. Like, not that I was the one who ran everything, but it's also kind of like, I was telling these guys the other day, like, I don't even see half of the shit that we do anymore. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean? Like, I used to love seeing all the rad prints and being grabbed and being like, hey, check this out. Or like, we're doing this. I literally had to go to Brian in the art department. I was like, on the schedule, can you put like a little smiley face with stars on it or something that says like, so I know to go look at this print because I want to see it. Like, it's a cool one. You know what I mean? Like, I'm not around for that shit anymore. I don't see these things. Like, we have customers that do shirts and I'm like, I fucking didn't even know we did that.
Mm-hmm. Dylan, have you gotten to the point yet where you walk in and say, who is that? I didn't, you're like, I have no idea who that. Oh, that's our new, it's our new cooler.
Well, that's what I said. Like,
you're like, I didn't know we hired anybody.
Well, that's the thing. We just hired someone for the front desk, and like, I wasn't involved at all.
Yeah.
Like, they did the interviewing, they picked the people, they did the whole thing, and it was just like, I was like, you sure this is who we're doing? They're like, yep. And I'm like, all right, cool. But it's just Dylan,
I think that's awesome. I mean, I understand what you're saying. The stuff that you're passionate about, and it's your and you can figure out how to still be a part of that as much as possible. But I think that when I hear somebody say that, I'm going, good for you. I mean, that. Yeah,
no, it's great. Like I said, I literally don't have to be here. Like, the place runs itself. I was just out all week with the flu, and they not once called me about work. And I go on these trips or do this stuff, and they don't bug me, which is great. Like, it's cool that like they don't bug me and they can take care of it. But it's also like I said, and I have a place in the company where I can be here and things do progress when I'm here, because my focus is on working on the business or doing marketing things or whatever. But it's like I said, I do miss a little bit of the, just the day to day, like being in the shop. Or there's times now where I'm like, I know I have shit to do in my inbox, but I kind of just want to go walk around the shop and like do some stuff out there, because I don't want to sit at my desk and I want to see stuff printed and I want to smell the air in the shop. You know what I mean? Like, I just want to be in it. So I think that's where it's like difficult for some people, because like there's a lot of shop owners that we talk to that started the business and they're the printers. It's easier Absolutely. It's easier for me to be at my desk because I've always been at my desk. But like, if you started on the press and you love the craft of screen printing and you're on the press all day, it's hard for you to be like, all right, let me find a way to work myself out of this. Unless you're at the point where you're like, I have to start thinking about retirement and selling this company where it will run without me, like you're saying. So I feel like it just depends on what you're into.
Yeah, well, I think there you go. It depends on what you're into, right? I mean, I think, what you're passionate about, and also anyone, whether it be a business owner or middle management, anyone, you end up gravitating to things that you know and that that you're good at. Right. Where, and it's just the idea of where can I we got a lot to do. I can do that. And you feel like you're adding value, and you are at that given moment. But again, I'll keep using the phrase, it's not scalable. And what happens on these kind of hub and spoke type deals, which it sounds like you're breaking out of that, which again, congrats. But what a lot of owners end up doing is they're not fixing the root cause of the problem. They're just expanding their own bandwidth, right? They're getting an assistant, or they're hiring somebody to do this part of their job, and then they fill up that capacity, right? And then they get back to the exact same problem they have. So then they got to hire another person that is really not. It's just expanding what they're doing, and again, it's not. Eventually, that's not scalable.
Right.
And I don't know, and Andy, you might be able to give some insight, or Dylan, maybe you had to come from this, how to break that cycle. I hate to be the person that sits around and says, "Oh, there's a better way." Mm-hmm. The problem is I don't know how to help people get to the better way, because many of these things are so ingrained, right? That trying to pull apart that bird's nest, although it can be done, is so incredibly painful. Right. Mm-hmm. And the thought of even trying to untangle that knot, it's just so daunting that most people just never do it. And maybe you guys could have some insight on how people could start.
From my experience, it was always like, I have key people that have been with me for a really long time. And I feel like you can always tell the people that are interested in growing the company, regardless of wage, regardless of whatever. They're passionate about where they are. They're passionate about the company. They like the culture. They like everything. Those are the people that I'll do anything for anybody here, at work, outside of work, whatever, anyway. But those are the people that I will extra take care of. And those are the people that I give a little extra to, as far as like managerial, whatever. It's just kind of like, all right, well, what part of the company are you passionate about? And they're like, all right, well, I'm really good at numbers and shipping, receiving, and, ordering and whatever. I'm like, okay, well, you had that up. And then recently, Bill is our new production manager. He was all for like management and doing like sitting down with everybody and hearing them out and like all this stuff. And I was like, dude, fucking good for you, man. Let's do that. And it's just like, I feel like you give them the responsibilities and they grasp hold of it and they take ownership of it, then it's kind of like, that's where you can step back, because they're making decisions without you. And I feel like that's the key thing, is like just giving people, like, you don't have to micromanage, just give people like the rope and they'll take care of it. Like, as long as they're not like horribly botching it, then it's like, you have to obviously step in. But like, for me, I've always just like, don't come to me with an excuse or whining about something unless you have like some kind of way to fix it. So that's kind of always been the mentality of like, you don't need me. You just need to figure it out.
Have the confidence in making a decision,
right?
And know that if we screw up, it's going to be okay. I'm going to support you. We're going to figure out why. We're going to figure out how to do it better next time. But I'm speaking for you, I guess. But I don't.
No, that's the kind of boss that's going to
come in and bring down the hammer, because shit happens. So
and it's just t-shirts.
At the end of the day, it's just a damn t-shirt.
Right. Exactly.
But man, I tell you, we all have those stories where, now I wish back when, 15, 20 years ago, we've all got the stories of, the field day order for the local elementary school, 300 shirts, youth sizes. And inevitably there's a 3X in there, right? Or there's the 4X, just one, right? Because that's Big Johnny's.
And Big Johnny is the one who puts all his heart and soul into it.
Yep. And you deliver those 6 cases, right? 420 something or whatever that is. And you put that 3X in there. Damn well you put that 3X in there. But you get that call the next day going, we didn't get the 3X. And you've done everything. We used to put bright red stickers on the side of the box with the 3X on there, going oversized garments in this box. We had some customers so bad that we would hand count them in front of them, right?
Yeah.
And they'd still come back. And but again, to where Andy started earlier, customer service, right? You got to figure out now. What I've seen a lot of people doing, which we didn't have back then, really was, where they're putting the cameras underneath the packing station, right? And when they would have timestamps, and if somebody really wanted to complain about it, you come back to them and say, "There's me putting it in that box. Here's the video."
Yeah, and we used to have those
great
sort of things where we would triple check and we would say, "Oh, these are all triple checked." Like SNS checks them and weighs them, and they show up at a certain weight because we know the weight of how many shirts should weigh this much. We count them when we receive them. We print them. We count them before we when we put them back in the box. And so it's triple checked.
Customer doesn't give a shit though.
But the customer doesn't care. And in the end, they're like, "Well, so are you saying I'm wrong? Are you saying that I don't know how to count?" And so it's like we don't even bother with any of it anymore. We never say that. We used to have this when somebody emailed that they were missing or something, we would have an email signature that we'd just put in their name and send back, and we still do that for the first. Like we don't our policy here is we don't even respond for a few hours because a lot of times they'll find it, it shows up, right?
That's my favorite call is to be like, I know you're not an idiot. Like I'm trying to say this the nicest way possible, but are you sure you counting them correctly?
Yeah.
And then 9 times out of 10, I feel like they're like, "Oh yeah, sorry. They were, my son grabbed this one before I had a chance to count it and blah, blah, blah." And it's like, dude, all right.
But in the end, if they can't find it, then you just fix it and you give them the shirt. Because why? Because you want a customer for life. You want them to order for the next field day or for whatever else. And you don't want them, and you want them to maybe they even know, like it's probably there somewhere, but you helped me fix it. So I have it now. And they'll tell everybody. They're like,
absolutely.
ShireConk's great. I came, I couldn't find my shirt and they just printed me one and got it to me. That's your chance to really.
Everybody's 5 stars when everything goes right.
Mm-hmm.
There's not a company out there that when things are perfect doesn't get 5 stars. Right? But it's how the company, restaurant, or whomever, how they handle when something goes wrong.
Right.
That's what differentiates. How long do you keep your screens? We're talking about this customer comes back, field day, delivered. Let's say you delivered them on Thursday afternoon, right? Field day, you've got to print. Do you library those screens for a period of time? You try to hold on to them for a week, just so that when they do call, you at least got the screens done. You have to set them back up. Do you keep them up?
What's your answer, Dylan?
Well, that's not my industry. That's not my market. That's yours. So we're getting screens out. They're washed that day. So like I'm not.
Ours. So we have about 600 screens here. We have, it's kind of broken down 200, 200, 200. So there's 200 that are going to be coded and, ready to go. There's 200 sort of waiting to go to reclaim. And then there's 200 being reclaimed. And so, it's like, and it always cycles through. So it's not a set, this is going to be for a week or this is going to be for a few days.
Yeah. But you told me that you keep some screens on hand for those bigger jobs that you're going to keep redoing, right? Or like he's saying is like, are you printing that job for that school and then holding those screens for, say, a week because little Timmy's going to call and say he's missing his shirt?
No, I think that, it happens. It doesn't happen a lot. And we can't, I don't like sitting on screens just because waiting for little Timmy to be upset or whatever. We'll just make new screens. You know what I mean? It sucks, but we'll just make some new screens.
Now, I would say, do you guys have CTSs or DTSs?
Yep.
Okay. Yep. Both of the acronyms are interchangeable depending on what you use. But back then we had film, right? So it was not that. It was a little more to it. We got a library and file positives, film. We have an image setter, and we had the old Zonte. Screenwriter, right? Where you had to then you had to spray
laser printer. Yeah.
Toner. That thing was fabulous. I mean, we kind of look back on it now, but golly, I remember we started making. When I started when I was 13, they were cutting out lithograph, right? With a dark room and a stat camera. That's how we.
Yeah, we used to laser print on Casey's vellum. They called it.
Yes, Casey's absolutely. I probably could find you a stack of them. Anyway. But that was. I mean, it's kind of like what these laser systems that are coming out now, which we can talk a little bit about here in a little bit. But I remember when the first Macintosh LC2 came out, and they had this graphics program that used this thing called a vector artwork, and you could get clip art, and you could do kernels, and you could put fonts and text around images. This would have been early 90s.
I like that when you describe that you're doing in magic hands. You're like, and then you do this thing.
It was absolutely magic. Now, there's good and bad with this magic, right? So in the 80s. late 70s, early 80s is really where
every design looks the same.
Screen printing kind of started. John Weiss, New Buffalo Shirt Factory, they figured out how to print on black, which is what they would call an underbase, right? And there was a guy from the car industry who was painting cars, was like, why are we not putting down a primer first? Oh, let's try putting down. This is all late 70s, early 80s. But you still had to do everything with what's either called a drum scanner, which there's a place out of Dallas called Serochrome Steps, which is still in business. I mean, if you want absolute best, they're still in business, but separations would be $3,000, right? And they would send you, and then each piece of film would be $100. This was in the 80s. M&R Formula, 1988, 89, 90, 16 color was $300,000, right? And so T-shirts would cost you $15 or $20. And once Apple came out with his LC2, once Zonte came out with the Screenwriter, you made high quality artwork and screens accessible to everybody. Right? It was no longer as much of an artisan type of industry. You really made it without much training. You could make a pretty good screen with these two tools. And then you had, mid 90s, M&R launched their Gauntlet 1. Late 90s, all Air Sportsman's, early 2000s Sportsman E. And by 2002, you could buy an all-electric M&R 16 color for about $60,000. 10 years earlier, that same machine was $300,000, right? And so, what other industry is? I mean, other than maybe computer chips and some stuff, but cars are not cheaper. Than, I mean, but in our industry, we drove down the barriers to entry, and it almost happened overnight. And so you had a lot of people go out of business. Right? You had a race to the bottom. You had NAFTA that kind of came about at the same time. So we lost a lot. And so I guess I'm kind of saying all that, it's kind of good and bad, but you've got to figure out where your niche is. And so Andy, we used our bread and butter, our niche through our business was basically school business and then colleges, right? We ended up with like 300 licenses, for universities all over. And we were filling in bookstores, right? We were selling to about 400 and something college bookstores all around the nation. And we would library screens. And when I mean libraries, we would run a kind of a 7-day rotation. In that we'd have a section of the shop. This is Monday screens, Tuesdays, Wednesdays, Thursdays, Fridays. Whatever screens we used on Monday, we put back in Monday's section. And they would not get cleaned until the following Monday.
So you had a week.
Kept them off for a week.
Yeah, we kept them for a week. And a lot of time we had, because we just popped them up on, we had some really good manual printers. That's a bit of a skill that I don't see as much out there. I know a lot of shops that don't even have any manuals.
Right.
They have only automatics.
Same.
And
we just got rid of ours.
Yeah, we did too. Our minimums, we switched, we raised them, and it was like, why are we going to bother? And we can do with CTS, you can do a fix just as fast. You can set up on an auto just the same. I know it's
nostalgia. We tried to keep them for as long as we could because we were like, we're going to need this. We're going to need this. And then it just collects dust and takes up room in your shop. And you're like, well, I don't.
And it also allows you to Band-Aid maybe some other problems, right? Maybe there's some other, whether it's counting the shirts better or, double checking your order. I think half the time we'd set things up on the manual because we misordered, right? Or we forgot to update the size. The customer sent an update to the original size run. That update never caught up to the original order paperwork. So we printed the first order and then the sales rep goes, well, where's those 18 that she added? She added in plenty of time, and somebody's going, oh shit.
Right.
Well, so what do we got? Oh, it's fine. We'll just print those 18 on the manual real quick. Right. And so that manual probably, again, kind of Band-Aided or covered up some other system.
Back to your story, Jeff, how you said you got to that point though, where you guys got a couple autos and then you didn't have that manager structure or whatever. How did you guys get out of that?
I guess, so the short answer to that is we didn't. We took it as far as we could. This was been my mom, dad, me, right? So you had 3 people in the family who were burning it on both ends. And eventually by 2010, we sold the business. Right? So we sold it to one of our customers at the time, which was a large healthcare group, believe it or not, that did a bunch of promotional product type stuff for this hospital network. Millions and big numbers. But we were also their sole supplier for all of their apparel, scrubs. Multiple hospitals. I think they must have had a really good year one year, and they were like, who's this vendor over here that we're spending all this money with?
Right.
Oh, they're actually here, and we had to be in the same town.
So they approached you. You weren't for sale. They just approached you.
Actually, my dad just at a basketball game was sitting next to the CEO of this company. They were just kind of shooting the shit. I think my dad said something effective. If you ever want to get in the screen print business, just offhanded. Just completely innocent conversation. And like 3 or 4 months later, he called back and said, "Well, are you serious? We're interested." And so Dylan, they bought us in 2010.
And you were cool with that decision?
Yeah, I was. 08 and 09 were tough years for everybody, right? And we had kind of expanded on straight up through that. We were a little insulated from that recession because typically during recessions, education is actually does better, right? People lose their job, they're going back to school, or they're staying in school. So our primary customers was the education base. So we did okay. And we would have been fine, but we would have had to make some tough decisions. And, I didn't know where we're going to go from there. Right. Yeah. Like we talked about earlier, we'd not built out an organization that allowed us to take vacations, which right. I think is happens to a lot of folks.
So when that happens, what was on your radar? What you were like, I got to do something after this. What were you?
Well, they
thinking?
bought it. No, we continued to working for the owners.
Oh, okay.
My dad worked for another 8 years. My mom for another 4 or 5. I worked there for about a year.
That'd be scary for me, like, selling this and then staying on at what capacity, I guess there's some sort of arrangement, obviously, that you make that, you're probably incentivized to stay because, if I'm subtracted from this, how much business do we lose? Like what's the retention?
At least for a while.
Well, there's there's different structures you can do, whether it be earnouts or commissions or, vested, whatever. I was just young and immature, and, I had used to been able to kind of, again, I had built these spokes around me that, looking back on it, I was only successful because I could just kind of run around and put out whatever fire was going on at that moment, but I didn't know how to address why that fire started. Right? Well, these folks came in, bought us, professional manufacturers of a bunch of medical type stuff plus promotional products. They were kind of bringing in best practice type stuff, but it was rigid, right? This is how you got to key in your order. You got to key it in like this. You've got to do these steps, and when you're used to being the boss, right? And then, I just got frustrated, and I was wrong. I was wrong to get frustrated, but at the time, couldn't see the forest for the trees, maybe. But, and yeah, they started cutting back on some of the accounts that I was working with. They deemed them, hey, we're not making any money on that account. And then I would have the whole. We had a lot of ego accounts, right? I had a lot of ego jobs.
What's that mean exactly?
Yep. So, we all get that email, or that there's that local marathon, or that some account or some job that, every screen printer goes, man, I'd love to be able to do that job someday. Or, you want to get that 10,000 piece marathon.
And then you get it and realize it's a nightmare.
You get it, and you had to bid it so damn low that, and most folks, we could talk 10 hours about most folks not really understanding what their costs and stuff is, but you would bid it, and your way of pricing it was you had somebody on the inside that told you what they paid last year for, right? Oh, they paid $3.95 last year. I'm going to do it for $3.70, right? And then you start going, it's 10, and the way that most screen printers, myself included, oh, it's 10,000 shirts, one color front, one color back. We can do that in 2 days, and my cost on the blank is X. And so the difference between what I'm charging and the blank cost is $2, 2 times 10,000. Look, I'm going to make $20,000 in 2 days. Are you really? Right. First of all, no, you're not. You know, what's your opportunity? What opportunity cost are you missing out on for other jobs you're not doing during those 2 days? You know, and once you finally get the fully burdened overhead and all that, but it's an ego job, right?
Yeah.
You wanted to have your name on the top of that sponsor list on the back. Why? I don't know. I just did. And we had a lot of those. I had a lot of those accounts where I thought, look how awesome this is. Look at how many Automax we had. And look at the types of accounts that we're getting to produce. Any screen printer would love to have those accounts. I don't know if we're really making any money on them.
Right.
So it's an ego account.
But it's like you said, you don't know what you don't know.
I didn't. And this is before.
You know what the hardest thing I think is, for me anyway, as I go through and when I recognize that's an ego job or just a job that we shouldn't be doing anymore, is most of the time that the customer doesn't take it well, you know, because in fact, I have a customer right now that a couple of orders ago, we told them I think they wanted 10 shirts. I'm like, oh, it's not our, you know, our minimum's higher than that now. We're going to have to order more. And they got upset. They said, wait a second, you know, I've been coming to you for, you know, 8 years and, you know, I was a loyal customer and now you're too big for me, I guess. Is that what's happening? You know? And so I'm like, wait. So in order to survive, a company has to adapt and evolve and they change over time. You know, they grow. And we're not the same company we were 8 or 9 years ago. And so I used the analogy because we were talking, the account reps and I were talking about it earlier. And I was like, I'm so pissed off right now at Netflix that I can't get my DVD in the mail, you know, because I just want a DVD to watch my movie. But now they've got to stream it online. This sucks. You know, why can't they just, I was a customer of yours, you know, years and years ago, and I just want to watch DVDs. You guys suck. You know, so it's like, it doesn't even make sense to say, does it? Because but yet that customer's saying that we suck and that we won't do their small order. You know, what's wrong with us? They were loyal to us earlier. And so I think it's breaking up sometimes is horrible. You know,
breaking up or saying no. I didn't learn how to say no to customers. I was so whatever I had to do to get the sale, right? And that was not a skill I was good at. I know some folks. You know, Eric, our friend Eric in Night Owl, he's great with his pricing, right? I tell him all the time, being able to stick to your price list is a really hard skill to learn and a really hard skill to be okay with. I want the job. You know, I want to get that order. I want to work with that tour. I want to do their merch. That's my favorite band or whatever it is. But being able to stick to your price list is a really, really hard learned skill.
You mean if somebody tries to negotiate?
Yeah, or just where they come back and say, "Oh, you're too expensive," or "Oh my, you know, what do you mean? Oh my God, this is way more than what we were paying from our previous supplier and all this." And you know, it is what it is. You have no idea. First of all, you have no idea whether they're really shooting you straight or not. And you know, I see it all the time on the Facebook groups. You know, people asking, "Give me a price," you know, or "Am I close here?" Well, first of all, I have no idea. And that's probably the best answer that anybody could give these folks is I have no idea, because we don't. And for the people that go, "Oh, you're way too cheap," how do you know? You don't. You know, that guy might be working at a barn out back of his house with no rent payment, no
that his grandma pays for.
You know, that his grandma pays. You know, you have no idea what his overhead structure is. So he might be doing just fine at $3.75 a shirt, and you're at $5.25. Why in the hell are you trying to compete with the guy printing out of his barn? And then don't judge his $3.75. You know, good for him. You know, we also have no idea what somebody else's lifestyle expectations are, right? You know, in my world now in Asia, so we hear a lot about, you know, the term living wage, right? Which can mean a million different things to a million different people. And it's not a term I don't like the term, because you know, everybody's living wage is different. And I mean, my living wage is pretty high. I mean, to live the lifestyle I want to live, my living wage is X. But somebody else might be able to be completely happy with a completely different living wage, just because that's the lifestyle they want to live. And
yeah, Dylan he likes Red Barons, like he loves Red Barons.
I have a very low barrier.
I'm kind of a diva. I like a fancy pizza. So I need to charge more.
What's the, it's Paul, you like the Paul Newman thin crust, huh? Those are
I've never had that.
Andy's that guy. Really Andy's that guy we'll go to a convention or something, and I'll stay at a fucking they probably just fumigated the place. And Andy's like, yeah, I'm staying at the Ritz. And I'm like, ha. And I look and he's like actually staying at the Ritz. So it's like,
well, Andy and I would probably travel. Well, not that I stay at many Ritzes, but I have been called bougie a few times. But again, I'd have to charge $5.50 for the shirt, and Dylan, you might be able to charge $4. And there's nothing wrong with the $4.
Yeah.
And so being able to stick to your price list is a hard learned skill, but will serve you being able to say no.
1,000%. I like it.
The other thing I used to struggle with, and we'll come full circle here about kind of overseas large shop problems, but the other thing that I really struggled with here when we had my U.S. factory with my parents was, and I've told a lot of people this, and I think I remember talking about it at Print United, trying to be everything to everybody, right? Because there's kind of a lot of crossover stuff within a lot of our customers. The little league uniform mom, well, she's also the one that orders all the awards, right, for the end of the year. She's also the ones that gets the outfield sponsor banners, right? So when she's in there placing her T-shirt order, she goes, "Hey, do you guys do banners?" Oh, no. But I see those booths at the trade shows that I go to. How hard can they be? And so you end up going out and buying a, kind of an Epson printer, and you're printing that, and you're grommeting, and you never get very good at it. And it's a struggle. You pull your production manager over. He's the only one that knows how to grommet the banner because you only do them once a month or so. And so why the hell did we ever get in the banner business? Hey, do you do car wraps? Oh yeah, we got a graphic designer, we got this, blah blah blah. Yeah, let's figure out how to do car wraps. But then we never got very good at car wraps, and it ended up taking our people away from the things that they were really good at. And so, learning the skill of sticking to the price list, learning to say no, and then just not being afraid that if you tell the guy you don't do banners, if you're really good at uniforms, they're going to keep getting their uniforms from you. They can find somebody else who's really good at banners. Again, it's easy for me to look back on it and go, what the hell was I thinking? But
yeah, I think Dylan and I are both behind this. I stay in my lane. I know what I'm good at. I know what we do really well, and I don't want to reinvent the wheel and try new things. And there was a time where I did just exactly what you said. Of course, like we could diversify, and we can also I was going to bring stickers in house. We had a lot of people requesting stickers, like, oh, that seems pretty easy. We already have their graphic, and we'll just offer them stickers too. But I am all about outsourcing now, and so those guys do stickers really well. We'll just order it and mark them up and probably make more money than if we brought it in house. So
I could not agree with you more on that. I would encourage any screen printing shop to build out a supply chain that if they came in the next day and their building wasn't there, they'd still be able to get product to their customer, right? It's at least plan Bs, right? Mm-hmm. You've got to have a contract printer that you trust with a process set up. Let somebody else do your stickers. Let somebody else do your tote bags. Let somebody else, do this, and figure out what you're really good at and just stay really good at it. That's probably why we ended up with 9 autos, because we didn't know how to build out a supply chain. We maybe only needed those 3 of those autos for 6 months out of the year, but we didn't know what else to do. Right? It would have been a lot wiser had we just stayed at 6 automatics, and then for 6 months out of the year had a contract printer that would take over that remaining. But giving up that control, it's really hard. Given and you got,
especially when you're that deep,
got to have good processes in place, right? That contract printer, you got to get the shirts ordered on time. You got to get the PO to them on time. You got to get the artwork to them on time. If you're doing it yourself, especially as an owner, you just walk into the art room at 2:00 in the afternoon going, "Oh my God, hey, I need you to do these steps real quick. I forgot we got to print this tomorrow morning." you can do that when it's in your shop. You can't do that when it's the contract printer, right? So, you end up kind of building out this internal manufacturing operation a lot of times just to support, in my case, my own inefficiencies. But I didn't know what else to do. So
let's do a little fast forward to how you went from mom and dad's to Young One. I know there's a lot of stuff in the middle, but
there is. So sold that company, right? Worked for him for a year. Wasn't not unhappy, but just this is not where I want to be. Knew folks within the licensing industry, right? We were all these collegiate licenses we had. So I had just pinged some of my people in my Rolodex and let them know, hey, I'm looking to do something else. And so an opportunity came up with a company called Coliseum Athletics, which is out in Los Angeles. And Coliseum Athletics is the third largest collegiate apparel manufacturer in the world, behind it's Nike, obviously, and then I think it was called Knights Apparel. Anyway, regardless, they're the ones that's selling to mass market, Target, Walmart, all the T-shirts and fleece you see at the universities. And then there's Coliseum number 3. Nobody's ever heard of them. But if you go into a Kohl's department store and you see a lot of times it says like Stadium Fieldhouse, it's manufactured by Coliseum Athletics. Gordman's, different department stores have their own private label for some of their college stuff. Most of that's manufactured by Coliseum Athletics. Korean company headquartered in Los Angeles. My kind of first step into the world of kind of overseas manufacturing, tech packs and, all the stuff that goes into that. Worked there for about a year and a half, and then was approached by a private equity company in Los Angeles who was kind of buying and selling some textile companies on the West Coast. They were looking for an operator. So I went and did that for a couple of years, helped them integrate all of those, build a couple of factories, and then was approached by all of our good friend Ryan Moore at the end of that. And I had met Ryan previously, and so he reached out, and at the time he was working on building out a U.S. kind of sales service network for this company called Rock. At the time, nobody had ever heard of, right? This would have been 8 years ago. And I didn't know, but sure, let's do it, right? So again, still single, no kids at this point, which gives you some flexibility when those calls are made. So I moved to Vancouver, Washington, went to work for Ryanette, helped them get their their Rock sales network built out. I think when I started, they were selling maybe 10, 15 presses a year. And after a couple of years, we were selling 300 or 400 presses a year. And now I think they're doing considerably more than that, actually. So learned a lot through there, learned a lot of that experience, and then met my wife and took a year off of work. Just didn't work for a year. Actually contracted with Liquid Graphics in California to help their new factory for a little bit, but then got married, all that good stuff. And then once I was ready to go back into the
when does that? Well, first of all, when does that fucking happen? Is that you meet the love of your life and you're just like, let's just not work for a year?
Yeah, well,
that sounds like an Andy move where you're just like, I feel like going here for.
It was a move. You're like, I'm unemployed. You showed her that you're not worth much. You're like, I don't have a job. Did you have a home? Were you homeless too?
I was not. I was renting. So I guess it depends on your definition of homeless. I guess. But no, I just had been married in my career. My wife kept working. She was there at Nordstrom, but
well, she loves you for you.
That's it. Look, hey, if you can, look, we just need to assume that I don't have a job and I never will. and if you still say yes, then I know you really love me.
Yeah,
so
exactly.
Put her to a test. No, it was good. Got married in that year. Then reached out. So
I got a quick question for you. If you seem like you've done all these different things for these different companies, and you like you said, you went from working with your mom and dad to going to the collegiate thing and then doing the Ryanette thing, which I'm sure all had different roles for the most part, but you had this industry knowledge of whatever. When you got to take that year off and actually reflect on what it is that you're good at and what it is you want to do, what did you narrow down? What were you like, fuck this, I'm not doing this anymore?
I had the answer to that.
Okay, that's why I hope you had the answer to that.
I can tell you what I didn't want to do. Right now, I might not really know what I wanted to do, although I've found a good home now. But I hate saying this, I didn't want to deal with customers anymore. Right, and working for Ryanette for those 4 years, I mean, what Ryan did and is doing, bringing in a new line of equipment like that, building it from the ground up, is nothing short of remarkable. But dealing with customers is stressful, and I took it personally, right? I mean, I was really vested, and I still am to this day, but slightly different. I was invested in their success, right? And when something wasn't going right for them,
it weighs on you.
It weighed on me.
Yeah,
a lot. And as we were Ryanette, and we were kind of on this rocket ship as we were getting rock off the ground, we had a lot of growing pains. It is not easy to bring over that amount of equipment. The logistics, the LTO carriers, the service, what are the electrical requirements and the air requirements, and getting all these ducks in a row. It is remarkably hard to get those systems and processes set up, and we stumbled a lot. And we were selling so many of these things, and there's so many nothing major, right? But just little things. And, I didn't feel like we were, I wanted their process of buying something for me to be perfect. And when it wasn't perfect, I took it personally.
Right.
And I shouldn't have. That's my own fault. But, it was what it was.
I think it's a great quality, though. I mean, if you're, if I'm buying something from someone and they actually care, about the product, not just, it's the after the sale thing too. Like once it's here, and how does it work? I've often thought about how great it would be if, and I'm going to use M&R as the example because that's where I buy a lot of my stuff from. If they had a customer success person, that flew here the week after the install, and they had nothing to do with putting the press together or anything like that. They just were here for, I don't know, a day or two, and they showed me how to use that machine properly, or is it hooked up properly, or what do you know what I mean? Because there's so many people that, and it's not just presses. It's because once you have your first press, you kind of know after that. But I mean, like my Ecotex, for example, like the auto reclaim when it got installed was working perfectly before the tech left, but then how do we actually run it for weeks in production? Things change. And so wouldn't it be cool if somebody came here, or even, I guess, I know that's expensive, but maybe they could Zoom call me and check in and say, how's it going? What are your issues? Let's fix them. You know what I mean? But that's not a thing, and so it's frustrating. And so
not a thing for any manufacturer, to be clear, not just M&R. I mean, there's nobody really doing what you're talking about.
But wouldn't it be cool if they did?
It would. I had a great distributor.
Hey guys, listening, wouldn't it be cool if you fucking did that?
GSG is who, because we were in Texas, is who we bought all of our stuff for Graphic Solutions. I put them in NASDAR or SPSI as well. That was a really good shot. And they used to have, I don't know if they still do, but our sales rep, Mike Ortega, who's still there. Mike, if you haven't listened to these things, hello. And he's still there, but he was the one that sold us we bought the machine from the distributor, right? And then it was the same guy that we were buying our ink from, and the same guy that we were buying our emulsion from. So Mike would come by once every couple of weeks, but also knew how to run that automatic.
If you're lucky enough to have a person that you're buying from know all that stuff, and then they take the time to come in and do that sort of thing. And in fact, the person I have bought some of my equipment from used to work at M&R. So they actually knew from the inside, they used to be an install tech even. And so, but some people are in Canada or whatever, and the press is shipped to them and there's nobody even around, Lord. What are you supposed to do? There's nobody stopping by ever.
Imagine, at least we have YouTube today, right?
Right.
20 years ago, we had usscreenprinters.net, and that was a forum.
That was Scott. That was Fresner.
Scott Fresner, out of Phoenix, and that's where we'd go to. I remember trying to figure out how to upload an image to a thread. I couldn't figure it out. So we do have a certainly wider database, but Andy, you make a good point. Maybe some of our distributors and some of our manufacturers have maybe pulled back on that more personal service because they're pumping the resources because it's cheaper just to put stuff up on YouTube, right? Go to YouTube. Go all the trainings on YouTube. It is, but it's not the same, right?
I think everybody's just so concerned right now with pumping up their numbers and selling presses and doing this and doing that. But it's like, dude, we're all just still trying to figure this shit out too. Like, yeah, it's another press sale for you, but like to somebody that might be their first auto or it might be their first whatever. And it's like, we still need our handheld too, to be like, help us like make sure we're okay and like things are running smoothly. And then when we need a new piece of something, we'll go to you because you helped us out, not just because you sold us something.
Jeffrey, I have a question for you.
Sure.
This pertains to this. Where do you think the shop owner's focus should be on, where in their business should their focus be on? I guess I should qualify as like an operator, somebody that's not removed, that I guess maybe they're like the hub with the spoke thing. Where should their focus be?
Where should Andy's focus be?
Yeah, well, and ultimately they've got to monitor sales. Whether that needs to be their focus or not, I don't know. But when your revenue starts dropping, a lot of those warts that growth allows you to cover up. But as soon as that revenue ever starts declining or going down, problems that didn't really matter so much because you continue to grow suddenly become a huge problem and can put you out of business quick. And so you've got to have your finger on sales every day. You cannot just totally hand that on. Now, maybe it's a business partner who's good at it. Maybe it's a wife that's good at it. But somebody with a significant vested interest in the company has got to be laser focused on revenue all the time. Looking at last year, what's the trailing 12 months? What's the year to date? All these things. Next month we did this event. I haven't heard from them yet.
What if they're not very good at that? What if they're good at printing shirts and all of a sudden they have this business that's doing millions and they don't know how to look at data? Should they call their accountant and say, hey, I don't know how to do this?
No, you shouldn't call your accountant because first, let me back up. You got to have a really good accountant. You got to have somebody who can absolutely give you the right numbers. And as your business grows, it becomes very difficult to get, again, it's, shit in, crap in, crap out. If you're not putting in the right numbers, but you got to have a good accountant that can give you numbers you trust. But I would not look to accountant to advise you on financial matters, if that makes sense, because a CPA is not a CFO. It's a completely different skill set. Now the CFO cannot be successful without a good CPA. But a CFO type person, and there are now, with so much stuff virtual, they're great, kind of part-time CFO type things who can that typically maybe they can also do CPA stuff. But I've worked with a lot of CPAs that look at our industry, and their way of advising you is they go and run some report using your SIC code, right? Well, within our industry's SIC code, you get bundled into commercial printers, which are wide format digital graphics, signs, and banners. The overhead structure for a screen printing shop is completely different than the overhead structure of a digital sign manufacturer, right? So they're going to come back to you and say something effective. Oh, your payroll should be 36% of your revenue. Why's your payroll so high? They don't know that you need 2 people in that reclaim room. They don't know that you need, you got to have 3 people in receiving, because when the broder delivery comes and the UPS truck is filled to the rafters, you got to get all that checked in because you got to print it tomorrow. The CPA doesn't understand that. A CFO, first of all, should know your business inside and out, or at least your industry, and is going to be able to take the information he's getting from the CPA and then apply practical industry knowledge to it to then be able to make financial decisions off that information. So you do have to have a good accountant, but that's not who you want to be going to give you.
Well, if you don't have advice. A CFO, at what level of revenue do you have a CFO? And if you don't have one that's full time, can you have like can can you, how do I say this? Can you hire somebody to
you want
be
like
your
a
CFO?
freelance CFO?
There are absolutely
Basically,
folks out there.
you know?
They're absolutely good. I couldn't even recommend that.
You can retain them and say, hey, so I mean, for 10 hours a month,
it costs you, maybe $1,000 a month or something, right? Or $1,500 a month, where they're going to look at last month's books. They're going to meet with you each quarter. They're going to, help you do at the end, the fourth quarter. They will be the one helping you put together next year's budget, right? They're going to come to you and say, Andy, here's all this year's numbers. What do you think? Is revenue going to grow next year? Do you think it's going to be the same? Do you think it's going to back up a little bit?
And they understand this industry. So they're not just a CFO for the whatever.
They've got to understand it. They've got to understand screen printing because we're not making widgets.
So it's almost like a consultant then, in a way.
Yeah. I mean, you've got to be delicate with the consultants. So got to be sure they can add the value that they say they can. And I'm not saying that anyone out there doesn't. But if you don't understand the business, you don't understand why a lot of lean principles or a lot of financial tools that make sense when you're making the same thing over and over and over again, they don't make sense when every single widget is custom. And, you start thinking about the number of SKUs that we have in our industry. And a short sleeve t-shirt is not a short sleeve t-shirt, not a short sleeve t-shirt. It's a Gildan or a Hanes or an American Apparel or a Tri-Blend or a 50/50 or 100% polyester or rayons or spandexes or women's cuts and youth cut. And then you've got sizes. That's why there's no ERP system in our industry, right? That really everybody loves because one, our industry is not big enough for the Oracle of the world to build one out. And two, everything out there, it's out of the box cannot encompass the number of SKUs that we have, right? I mean, just a one field day order, if for one class could be extra small, youth extra small through adult 2X, and maybe the adults get reds and the kids get yellow. And we're going to need different artwork because if we don't knock out that negative, it's going to be, or if we don't knock out that positive color, you're actually going to see the negative of the logo. So it's really two sets of screens.
And then we got to resize.
It's really all in the same order, right? We got to be sure we bill them as one invoice, but these are actually multiple jobs feeding up to this one parent invoice. It's complicated, right? And so if you don't have a CFO who can understand that, you're going to be.
I think the CFO would be great to talk to, once a month or whatever it is. You can review your P&L and know make sure you're on the right path, and also make sure you're focused. And that's why I asked that, because I think that a lot of shop owners focus on the wrong stuff. I think that, and not necessarily a fault of their own, I think they get pulled into it, and I think they start focusing on what equipment purchase do I need? Or, I get pulled into HR all the time. I mean, it's a big deal, it chews up a lot of my time, but I think we're in the limbo world of we're too small to have a full-time HR and we're too big not to have one, really. I mean, we really need somebody here. One of my questions is like, we haven't even got to where you're
where I'm currently working. It's a whole different world of problems.
Whole different world that you probably have, 1,000 HR. Your HR department is probably like 1,000 people. Like I can't even imagine.
It's more than that across there. Yeah, it's more than 1,000 people.
Yeah, right. So I mean, I think though, do you think it's accurate, Dylan? Do you think, Jeffrey? Do you think a lot of shops, the owners are focusing on the wrong things, and it's maybe. And that's why I asked you, and you said sales, revenue, I guess you said is like,
you have to have that, because that you're not going to have an HR department if you don't have your revenue, right? You're nothing else is going to exist without those sales.
I think we all need to realize though, that a lot of this industry is built off of just punk ass kids that decide they want to start printing t-shirts, and then they fall in love with the art of it. And then business takes over because it gains some traction. And then we find out, we have to learn how to do business too.
Yeah.
And then a lot of us just say, nah, dude. And we just keep printing shirts until we die.
And the thing is, there's nothing wrong with that. Right. And so, I hesitate on some of the, when I'm talking in front of groups or talking on any sort of panel, I always try to quantify something at some point in the conversation of, I'm not knocking anybody. right? I'm telling you all the challenges that I had.
Mm.
You know, somebody else might not look at those as challenges at all, right? They might be just totally fine with where they are, and there is absolutely nothing wrong with that. You know,
no, I just think, like you said, though, there's like, we all strive to do better at the business thing and all this other stuff. I just think that there's so many ways you can go about this industry and business wise. You can just be all about the craft, or you can just be all about the numbers, and you can do one side of things where you're dealing with like the schools, or you could do another side of things where you're dealing with the entertainment industry. And it's like, there's so many, like you said, skews and facets of this business that it's just like, it's impossible to put them all in one basket and be like, this is the advice that we should all take. It's just not
one size fits all for sure. You know, Andy, I think, you know, when I say he's the owner being focused on sales, maybe I should paraphrase that with a little bit of, they need to be aware, right? If they're not passionate about it, that's fine. If they want to have somebody else focus on the day to day, but they can't lose sight of it. You know, if you have a vice president of sales or sales reps, I don't know, you don't want to wake up 4 months down the road,
find out they messed it all up.
Have a meeting with your CFO, and he's going, Andy, what the hell? We're down, you know, $400,000 in revenue from last year. Jesus Christ, I had no idea why. Well, a lot of times it's going to be too late, right? So you want to at least always be in tune with it. Because without those sales, nothing else matters. At the end of the day.
All right. So Jeffrey, you took a year off and you realized you hate people.
Hate people.
What happens next?
Customers are stressing me out. So through that relationship with Rock, I sold some machines to a company in El Salvador, to a company that had a factory there. The company's name was Young One. Right? And so I was working with their chief technologist, or CTO, to sell some of this equipment to El Salvador. And so at the end of that kind of year sabbatical or hiatus, you know, he and I had been kept in touch over the years. I reached out to him and basically something effective, you know, hey, how's it going? You know, I've been following you from afar, and, you know, and I had helped him out with some problems over the years, just, you know, pro bono kind of thing. And I remember just saying, hey, have you ever thought about me, you know, coming on and more full-time capacity with you guys? Do you have anything available? He replied back in about 30 minutes and just said, interesting, I'll get back to you. And then a couple of weeks passed by, and I'm getting a phone call from him. He said, you know, your timing's impeccable, which is, you know,
always nice.
We've heard that story a million times. You know, we're having some problems, and you know, would you be willing to come on for? Remember this. Would you be willing to come on halftime and come over here and try to, you know, help us fix some of these things? And I'm thinking to myself, I don't know what the hell what is halftime? I don't understand how halftime works. Right? I mean, I can't. It's just not the way I'm wired. It's not the way
half of your life.
Yeah, it's like, oh, so I only got to think about your job for 4 hours a day. It's just not the way I work. And I knew that. I said, no, that's just not. So another month passed. You know, okay, how about, you know, can you come on this? And so we just kind of kept this back and forth. And then by November of 2018, they continued to have this problem continue to get bigger and bigger and bigger. And I just been kind of, you know, patient with it. And finally he reached back out and said, okay, let's bring you on for, you know, a year contract, and let's get this issue fixed.
Well, what is it you were going to do for them though? Like,
yeah, well, they were just having some really basic, you know, here's where we can kind of get into, I think, some of the fun stuff. And I think maybe some of your listeners would want to hear about, you know, Young One Printing. We got nine factories across El Salvador, Vietnam, Bangladesh, Uzbekistan, and Ethiopia. Okay, so we've got printing factories, but the printing factory is just kind of this subset or this small substation of the entire garment factory. Okay, so typically one of our factories, if we've got 9 of them, one factory maybe has, just going to use round numbers, it's not exactly like this, but let's say the factory has 10,000 people. And out of that 10,000, maybe 500 to 1,000 of them are responsible for printing. But everything else is sewing, you know, fabric cutting, HR, compliance, QC, QA, all of this that goes in. So we're taking in raw bolts of fabric, and our mill's dyeing them. Then we're putting it out on a cutting table. We're cutting panels. All right, so there's the first step of the process that's different than what we're used to. Is we're actually printing the panel. right? So the garment's not sewn together yet.
Right.
We're taking, if the print's here on the sleeve, we're only getting the sleeve panel, and it's about this big, right? So we're getting a stack of them, and we're putting that logo on that panel. And the tolerances of how precise you have to be with these things are, I didn't believe it when I first started there, but our QA people for a buyer, and we work with all the largest companies in the world. Half your closet's probably made by one of our factories. But our buyers will have QA. Imagine if every one of your customers had a representative there while you were printing their shirt. Okay. In real time.
For real?
Oh, and every day. Oh, and also imagine if the OSHA inspector also had an office in your building, and he's there every day. All right. So this is the world that we live in these factories overseas, which is fine. It's good to have. You're
right, keeps you accountable.
You're spending hundreds of $1 million with a factory. You're going to have a vested interest.
Or you just pay those guys off, like you.
Well, unfortunately, that I'm sure that happens more often than it should, and I think that's probably why Young One's done really well, in that we're big enough to where that's not going to happen, right? You hear these horror stories about bad stuff happening. These factories are smaller factories, right? It's a guy that has 1,000 people sewing in some high-rise building, and he is doing some stuff he shouldn't be doing. We don't do that, but we've got these factories. We're printing this logo on the sleeve, and we think of a pallet. Our pallet will have what's called the panel marks or the pattern marks actually drawn onto the pallet. Mm-hmm. But you got to remember, each size panel is different, right? So small, medium, large, XL, 2X, 3X. Right. And there's lines for each of those. So our people are placing that panel down on that pallet within millimeters. The tolerances are, because you typically have a sewing seam, right? So maybe there's a 3 mil tolerance on that seam.
Mm-hmm.
Well, and so it's a 1.5 mil on either side. So this logo has got to fall exactly at the midpoint of these two seams. And so that logo's has got to be within a millimeter, actually half a millimeter in some cases, on every one of them. So a lot, oftentimes we're watching videos, or I'll see people comment. Somebody from Asia, an Asia factory, will post some video, and inevitably it's, "Oh my God, look how slow they're going." Or, "If that was me, I'd be going 800 pieces an hour." Well, first of all, bullshit. You'd be doing that for about 30 minutes, and you'd be curled up in the fetal position for the next 3 hours in the break room, but nobody sees the break room portion. Good for you for 800 an hour.
Mm-hmm.
And so everybody's making fun of these overseas factories. Well, first of all, we're all water-based inks, right? So we're flashing after every color, and there's a cool down after every flash. That's why you have these big, huge ovals. And the other thing is we have these quality tolerances that you're loading 800 an hour. I bet from shirt to shirt, if I looked at all 800 of those, there's probably about 2-inch deviation. From your standard deviation, right? I mean, for us, we cannot be a half a millimeter off, so we go slow, right? 250, 300 panels an hour is plenty fast, and one garment, Dylan, one garment could have, I might just have a little reflective logo here, and then down here on the bottom left, I've got another little reflective strip. I've got the brand's logo here. One garment could have easily 7 or 8 panels on it. They get a screen print. And so for me, that's obviously, as you know, that's 7 different jobs, right? Because there's 7 different logos, 7 different sets of screens. And it's a challenge.
I like that, because so for us, when we have an assembled shirt, and if we have 4 locations or whatever, if we mess up on the 4th location, have a misprint, and that's terrible. With
that's a good point.
With panels, that I guess you don't have that issue, because
bring in a different panel.
Yeah, and we do. But
the hard part is on his side too. Is it's logistically, he has one shirt that's made up of 10 different panels.
And also, what about shade differences from fabric roll to fabric roll, right?
Right.
So I took that fabric roll and I cut out 100 full sets, right? So if there's 9 panels, the screen print, 100 sets would be 9,000 or whatever it is. individual panels. And let's say I do screw up on 5 of them or 6 of them. I've got to try and find another fabric roll where the shade's exactly the same. And it has to be exact because you're going to be sewing it right next to. If the whole garment was made from that other roll, you wouldn't be able to tell the navy from the navy because it'd be 2 separate garments. But even from roll to roll, if I took that navy panel from this roll, and even though it's the same lot number, same supplier, same everything, there's minuscule shade differences. And you don't see them unless you put them right next to each other. Right? So
that sounds fun.
It is.
So what is your role then? What is it that you're in charge of?
So ultimately I'm responsible for the graphic embellishment across all of our factories, right? So that might be sublimation printing, it might be some digital, and certainly screen printing. And we are opening up a heat transfer factory where we're going to make our own heat transfers, right? We purchase hundreds of millions of transfers a year.
Like DTF?
No, just old true screen printed transfers, right? So Sakurai presses, Eno presses. These are where you're taking a PET film, which we're familiar with, and you're actually printing.
Right.
Our printing runs will be, think of some athletic brands out there that have a logo here, right? We're doing, millions of those, right? So you're printing a sheet about this big that might have 50 of those logos on there.
How are you curing those sheets? Is it through the typical heat or is it a UV? What is it?
No, it's through typical, forced air dryers, which is what we're thinking of. But they are special they're dryers specific to the transfer industry. And what I mean by that is, so Eno's, INO, out of Slovenia. They'll be at Long Beach. I'd encourage people to go by there and look. They do some really cool stuff with registration. It's actually got cameras that all the screens are on motors, and they have a camera that looks down for this registration mark, and the machine moves the screen into perfect registration automatically. You just hit a button. I'm like,
wow.
It's expensive. So there's only, with heat transfers, you're doing every layer one at a time, right? Because you got to print that layer, sending
it down through the dryer, you mean, and then coming back?
Yep, then back. Just like old, kind of offset printing presses, right? Each was its own layer.
Like a poster.
So the Eno dryers have actually got a bottom suction, right? So the way their air works is they're actually pulling and holding down that transfer PET film as it goes across, and then above
blow around,
yeah, and then above it, they're doing this, to help cure it. But these are machines specifically made, to make transfers. So
now that's interesting. I agree with you wanting to go with the screen printed transfer, but it's such a large company that you're working for. What is something like DTF? What do you guys even think of? You're like, get that trash out of here.
Yeah.
Or...
Yes. No,
for real. Like,
no. It doesn't work for us, right? And there's 3 primary reasons it doesn't work for us. First of all, one, the white ink on DTFs is prohibitively expensive, right? Any digital white ink is going to be many times more expensive than the same amount of screen printed ink. And that's because they're all made out of, titanium dioxide, right? That's where white comes from. But the amount of refining that you have to do to get it to where you can push it through an inkjet is many times more than the amount of I'm being really oversimplistic here, but screen printing ink, if it's an A4 size, 1 layer, maybe it's 3 or 4 cents. That same size in a DTF or a DTG of white ink could be 30 cents. And so in our world where our runs are 50, 80, 100, 500, 1 million pieces of the same thing, ink cost is a significant
that adds
factor.
up. Yeah,
we do consumption calculations down to gram, less than grams, right? Half a gram, right? And so our ink cost calculations for a panel, is it 4.25 cents or is it 4.75 cents, right? Half a penny. Well, half a penny on a million garments
pieces.
Is 50 grand. Is 50 grand, right? So I better know my ink costs. Well, so DTF makes it prohibitively expensive because of the cost of the white ink. The second reason DTF doesn't work for us is, they'll get this figured out, but it's still difficult to match Pantones, right? So when you're working in a licensed or branded world, whether it be with universities, professional sports, major athletic brands, color, there's nothing more important than the color. I mean, we've all gone into and looked at some T-shirt or something, and we've all judged look at that terrible quality. The edges are blurry. But I'll tell you what's not wrong is, I guarantee you, whatever that Pantone is supposed to be, that ink is that right color. Might be out of registration, but that's how important color is to these. In DTF, it's still you've got to have somebody who's an expert at building ICC profiles, and those people are not easy to find. And when you find them, they're not cheap, because typically they're working in a sublimation house, or they're working in a digital packaging house, right? With these big, they're out there with their little loops, taking RGB measurements and making adjustments to ICC profiles to hit a specific color. And then the third reason for DTF doesn't work for us is we have to go through what's called some washing, many tests, but two that most people, wash test and crocking test, right? Crocking is where you take a machine and you're actually rubbing with a different amounts of weights, some wet rubbing, some dry rubbing, and you're rubbing this piece of white felt, and then the lab technician holds up the white felt and he sees if there's any transfer of this color to this special piece of white felt that's been rubbing on it. And it's graded 0 through 5, 5 being no transfer, 4.5 maybe being just a little bit if you look real close, and 4 being okay, if I look right here I can see it, but if I'm 3 feet away I can't see it. Typically a 4 and up is, most brands will pass that. Some are 4.5 and up. DTF's not going to be anywhere near. I mean, 2.5, 3, right? 2. It's just that digital ink's coming right off on that piece of white felt. You or I would never care. The end user is never going to care. It's not enough of it. But these brands' quality tolerances are so tight that it just wouldn't work for now.
Well, they don't want any issues.
Does that mean 5 years from now, DTF won't be a viable? It probably will be. I mean, look at where DTG has just come in the last 10 years. We are investing in some hybrid, right? So we are making some investments. We run ovals. I've got a lot of really, our typical ovals, 14 color, 44 stations, 42 stations. And again, that's because it's water-based ink, right? Print, flash, cool down. Print, flash, cool down. And that's just what our people understand. So that's what makes sense for us. We'll continue running those. We are going to purchase some hybrid units for one of our factories and start learning that technology. Again, you go back to the price of white ink. Why is hybrid attractive to me? Well, that's because my white ink is going to be traditional screen printed ink, and I'm only doing my top colors in CMYK. And the cost of CMYK ink is negligible. And
you can use that when Pantones aren't required or something.
Yeah, or hit a spot, right? I mean, if you've got digital, CMYK is going to be, I think I've read somewhere, maybe 90% of the color gamut, 93%. If you add the red and green, right? So you'll see that, CMYK +2. If you add the red and the green, I think it maybe gets you to like 95, but it's still not going to hit fluorescence, right? It's, if you got an ICC profile that can hit the baby blue, it might not be able to hit the purple, right? So if the graphics got the baby blue and the purple in it, you're going to need to hit one of those with a spot color screen.
Hey, factories that large, and I guess the skill level required, within those factories, what do you guys do with regards to education and recruitment and apprenticeship and things like that? Like, how do you, when somebody starts, do they start and then climb the ladder? I mean, how do you find so many people?
Yeah.
That are talented, how do you do
it? Well, Andy,
robots.
Yeah. Hey, I'm all in on robots. I mean, I am.
Well, we already know you hate people. So.
Yeah. I like my people. I mean, it's just, it's
the customers.
Can't backtrack now.
I love dealing with my internal folks, right?
Mm-hmm.
It was the external folks, and that's why I'm loving what I'm doing now, right?
Mm-hmm.
I'm not dealing with the brand. We have I'm just purely ops and technical side, and so when I started at Young One, they didn't have any automatic printing. It was all on tables. You've seen the big line tables, right?
Mm-hmm.
Huge rooms taking up 15, 20, 30,000 square feet of tables. Well, when space becomes a commodity, that's a problem. So one of the things I was brought in to do, and I'm still doing, is we're automating each of these factories, right? So we started with one, built it out, proved the concept. Now,
and you're putting rocks in there?
I'm putting rock printing machines, automatic machines. I'm putting brown
rock
Firefly dryers. Yeah, I guess. Yeah, Rock Portugal, right? Really likes me. I remind them a couple of times a year because, Andy, we talked earlier about how I'm a little bougie in my hotels. I'm also that way with my restaurants and my wine. And so about twice a year, Rock has the opportunity to remind me how much they appreciate me at some dinner. So, no, and I like the guys, right? I Joao and that whole team over there, great people. And I think they make the best. I buy ovals, right? And I think they make the best ovals in the world. In fact, I don't even think it's really close, to be honest with you. When it comes to carousel machines, I think M&R makes a fantastic carousel. I think Rock makes a good one, and I think MHM makes a good one. And we are not about to go down that rabbit hole of which, any one of those three is going to do a fantastic job.
You just took the safest approach into that.
Yeah, I've had to take that approach a few times because
for those shop owners out there, you shouldn't be focusing on that. You should get yourself one of those good machines, and then don't even think about it again.
Buy a used one. One of the things I love about M&R, first of all, I think Danny Sweem and those guys are doing a bang up job up there. If you're a brand new shop, and my Rock friends are gonna shake their head at me. If you're a brand new shop, I mean like you don't have a sales history, you don't really know if this is going to work or not. You're just M&R Press is very little risk.
Built like a tank.
Well, you can resell it for
you can resell it in a week. You buy a $50,000 Sportsman. 2 years later, it's going to be worth $45,000, and somebody will buy it from you within 24 hours of posting it,
or maybe more if you can give it to them super fast.
The last year or two has been more. Yeah. MHM does some specific things that are unique. Rock does some specific things. M&R, and none of them. The analogy of, was it Chevy versus Ford versus Dodge?
Right.
They're all going to do as good as. It just comes down to personal preference.
So how do
people should not get wrapped up in that?
No, they should. I agree. And I want to know if you can share anyway. How do you train? What's your training process?
Sorry, coming back to that. So, our biggest one, we have a difficult time recruiting people, and the reason for that is that these countries, if somebody wants to work in the garment industry, there's 10 open positions for every one person, even in the Bangladeshis and the Vietnams of the world. So recruiting is difficult, and then culturally, there's a lot of things that we don't have to think about here in the United States that. Women can't work the second shift. You've got religious things. You've got Muslims and Hindus. And are they going to get along? This village hates this village over here, and you can't. It's very cliquish. And so, our HR teams do a fantastic job of managing that, trying to put people in places for success. We do on the printing side of things. And I'm going to speak mainly to Bangladesh because this is really where most of my time has been spent. I'll be moving to Vietnam in the coming years, but we do not do a good job in printing. Printing within our factories is an afterthought, right? It's this substation. It's not where we make money, right? In our industry here, what you guys are doing, screen printing is what pays the bills. That's where you make the money. In my world, it's not. And so when we do find good people,
it's all in the garment.
Yeah, absolutely. It's all in the fabric and the trims and the garments, and this, this little logo. It's called a substation. It's so the money's made in the garment and the sewing and the efficiency of the sewing line.
Right.
And so, Andy, what happens is, even when we do find good people recruited into the printing, inevitably they get pulled out or transferred over to some other part of the factory where, and so it's a constant challenge.
So that's entry level. Then you would say the printing area is entry level, and then if somebody's really good, they're promoted.
It has been entry level, and here's still some of our challenges is that, if you recall, I mentioned that previously we were all table printing, right? Mm-hmm. Well, if people who are listening, if you're not familiar with table printing, just envision a big line, a flat table as long as a football field, and there's these little notches on the bottom of each station, and there's a screen, and it clicks into this notch.
Pick it up and move it.
You look, and you print, click, and you just walk all the way down, and that's one.
The same person that is printing is also moving the screen.
Yep, he's got.
You just print, pick it up, move it. Print, pick it up,
clicks in that notch, and you do that for every what we call layers, right? So if you've got a 4-color design on a red A4. White being one of the colors, you've probably got 6 screens, maybe 7, depending if you're doing a highlight white, barrier base, whatever. So on a table, you're going down that table 6 times, right? Well, there's not a lot of skill involved in that, right? You can train somebody pretty quickly to grab this frame and drop it into a notch and do a squeegee. This, a lot of times you'll see in the videos where they're doing like this, right? They're just
multiple times.
That's a squeegee, yeah. Print. Pick it up, print. And that's how they do it. They walk all the way down. There's almost no off contact. Nobody worries about angles or pressures. The line table is incredibly forgiving. But it takes a lot of space to get out big production. Well, our mentality has been this. So yeah, the printing area has been the low skill operators. Oh, print demand's up. We'll just transfer over 50 people from material handling, transfer them over there for 2 weeks, and give them a squeegee, right? And
no training.
None. Well, I mean, like a day, or maybe 4 hours in the morning. Here's a screen. Tape up your edges. Grab the squeegee. Do this 4 times. As you run low on ink, raise your hand. So that's been how we
quality controls that. Like, what happens if there's a problem? What happens if they're, they don't clear the screen, or there's a breakdown on a screen, or it's not registered anymore? Like who does somebody walk around? I guess there's probably there's
QC people. There's QC. There's QC people, and there's QA. There's 2 different things. Quality assurance is different than quality control. Quality control would be kind of inline inspection, right? In real time, there's somebody kind of walking up and down the lines, looking, being sure what's being produced. Then there's QA, which is quality assurance, which is more kind of final inspection. Kind of once the printing process is complete, is this go or no go? Those 2 people. As we've begun to automate our factories, our factory managers are learning that what we would call a printing operator on a table, you can't put him on a machine, right? I mean, I'm not telling you guys anything you don't know. And then pay rates and all these things of finding experienced machine operators and paying them what we need to be able to pay them in these countries. It is difficult, and we don't have a good training process. There's a lot of turnover. I mean,
so it's a catch-22 for you, because you're coming in and you're automating and you're trying to make this a better, more quality, more efficient way of doing things, but you don't have the labor to back it up. I mean, you do, but you need somebody to train them, basically.
It is, and Young One is unique in that we were starting from zero, right? This wasn't a matter of we were already printing with machines, and we're just expanding that. There were no machines there. And the world of inks over there are so challenging. Andy, I'm not trying to skip over your question. We do have a training curriculum, that we do for our table operators, but it's less than a day. And for tables, it's as long as they follow the SOP, right? It's not,
you got me thinking I should sell my autos and go get some tables.
You can do a lot of cool things with tables. I would. It's really foreign in the U.S. market, but you can do a lot of really cool things because there's no limit to the number of colors, right? I mean, it's not like a 4-station manual or something. Anyway, I would. Tables are fun, but they are slow.
What are some other strong differences between North America and?
So inks are, I would say, is probably the single biggest difference, even more so than equipment. Inks overseas, certainly in Asia, to a lesser extent, Central America, but in Asia, it's a form of water-based ink. Majority of it is a form of water-based ink. I mean, there's low solids acrylic, there's high solids acrylic, there's polyurethanes, there's hybrids, but for the simplicity's sake, it's all water-based ink. But it's not water-based ink like what we think of here in the States. When we think of water-based ink, we think Matsui RFU, Matsui ready for use, or I think Avient, ready for use. You get the red, and you're supposed to be able to open up the bucket, put it on your screen, and start printing. The ink's already been built. That's not the case over there in Asia, right? So in Asia, the distributors and ink companies, because there's so many nuances of what we're printing on, we're buying a base, and then we're adding a catalyst or a cross-linking agent, depending on the type of fabric we're printing on. Then we're adding certain fixers, depending on the types of fabric and the end result we want. And then we could have 2 or 3 other different additives, right? And so our ink kitchens, as we call them, nothing, not even our white ink, do you open up the bucket and that white ink's ready to go. It's having someone there who, whether it needs stretch, or whether it needs dye blocking properties, or whether it needs to be matte finish or glossy finish, or they're building these inks.
So the reason why they're going with what they're going with instead of more of a condensed system is because of the amount of variables in garments that are being printed over there.
We would not want to carry the inventory or the space to have ready-made inks for,
so that's the reasoning, I guess. Like, to me, it's always been this thing of like when people talk about water-based inks, they're talking about how, in the States, when you use water-based, you're grabbing a hold of this like thing that, the rest of the country's doing it, we need to catch up and we need to use water-based inks, when what I'm hearing is they're using it because they have to, because there's so many variables. Not necessarily because water-based
I hate that argument. I do not think that people in the States need to be moving to water-based. There's no, if it's a niche, and if you're good at it, you can build out a business for people that like that hand feel, or that like that little bit smoother, or that like the story that water-based ink can tell. It gets to tell, but it's incredibly difficult to use correctly. Incredibly hard to match Pantones. That ink recipe that worked on that Gildan 2000, it doesn't work on a Gildan fleece. The fibers interact differently, so you got to build the ink. It's really hard, Dylan. And there's nothing wrong with today's plastisol inks, whether it be Wilflexes or Unions, or I guess they got a bit of a monopoly now, but One Stroke or whatever.
I appreciate both, and the shops that are all water-based, like I give them hats off to, because they're putting out great product and they're doing this and doing that. I kind of am trying to gain the knowledge of like, why are they, you know what I mean? Not necessarily to just be like, well, I hear this is superior. It's like, well, why? You know what I mean? Like, it makes sense think it's superior, when you tell me that the reason why they're using it is because they literally have to custom build every ink for every project.
Yeah, I mean, our fabrics, are, a lot of our stuff's outerwear, right? I mean, we're printing on, 20 denier ripstop nylon with a DWR coating. I mean, it's got a water repellent coating on it, right? Okay, we got to get ink to stick to this thing. So we've got to build it differently than that pair of yoga pants that is going to be a knit fabric, and it's going to need to stretch 300%. completely different ink. It can use some of the similar components, but it's challenging. It's been fun. I've gotten to travel a lot all around the world, and been in factories that are just, we've got some factories that have 30,000 people, and we have our own hospital, right? We have our own daycares. We're feeding. We provide breakfast, lunch, and dinner for these folks every day, and transportation, and just the logistics that go into kind of seeing this behemoth be able to function. And honestly, I take a lot of pride in seeing what it's called the RMG industry, ready-made garment industry, what the RMG industry has done. Certainly for Vietnam, started with China 30 years ago, and then Vietnam and Bangladesh and Cambodia. Without these garment factories, these countries their GDP would be, I'm making up numbers, but half, right? That it's bringing up just this huge swaths of the population out of abject poverty up into what would be considered there a middle class.
What's so neat about this and this scale of a shop, because it's not really a shop anymore. You say factories, and it's plural factories.
Yeah.
I think what's so neat is that, or an observation I have is that, as we grow, we talked about, wouldn't it be cool to have a CFO? And then wouldn't it be great to have also besides just quality control, quality assurance, additional person, you're just adding people. And then now with somebody with a company that has 90,000, a team of 90,000, they're all not working within the garment industry. You've got, as you just said, you've got people that are providing transportation. You have people that are providing meals, so there's probably 1,000 people.
Healthcare in the building.
There's 1,000 people that are preparing meals, and that aren't even involved in the garment decorating.
Lunch
However,
ladies.
they are involved in this whole organization, I guess they are part of the team, but you just start adding, like, as you grow, it just becomes more and more and more. I would think at a certain point we would run a full-time accountant, like right here. You probably have 10 accountants, in-house accountants.
There's a lot.
And legal, you probably have a team of 100,
It's
just
a different,
there.
if it's a different thing, it's a different bear. It's a whole nother.
Yeah. We're a publicly traded company. I mean, so our company's headquartered in Seoul. It's traded on the Korean stock market. And so, there's it's a $3 billion a year company. But
it's really smart, because, and it shows that you care, because I'm in St. Louis, and we have Anheuser-Busch. There's a whole part of our city called Soulard they built all of these houses for people to work there. And I just did an Anheuser-Busch tour earlier this year, and they had a school there, so the parents could actually bring their kids to work. And then there was a school, that you drop them off at or whatever. So it's amazing as you grow as a company, the things that you can add. And even as a smaller shop, we have 25 people here, that I think all the time, because we have this break room, Dylan and I talk about, I just bought $500. I spent $500 at Costco. It was delivered here for snacks and stuff. And I thought to myself, well, wouldn't it be cool if we had just breakfast every day? You showed up here and we had a hot meal. Because I see people eating a Pop-Tart. Sometimes I see people eating chips, for breakfast. I'm like, we could do better than that.
Yeah.
And so it'd be just really cool to be able to do all that sort of thing. But then I have to charge more. And then my customers are going to tell me that my price is too high and argue with me, I guess, at the counter. I don't
know. Let your
stick
employee
to your price
eat
list
chips for breakfast.
stick to your price
It gets complicated though. I mean, it's really hard. What do you focus on? That's my theme right now is like, what should I be focusing on? And I think it's a real good question, because there's so many things. There's 1,000 things I could be focusing on.
Well, you asked me the question earlier. What do you think? For the people that are listening to this, it's probably mostly business, small shop business owners in the States. What do you think they should be focusing on? I mean, I said sales, or at least that needs to be at the top of the radar.
I agree. It needs to be at the top. I mean, you could be the best printer in the world, but if you don't have any sales, then you're going to stand there and not print anything. It doesn't matter. So you've got to have sales. And so I think that a second to that, or a very close second, or almost a tie, would be your team. The HR department is, you can have all the sales in the world, but if you don't have a team to produce and
I think it's just whatever you're passionate about. Like you
Yeah.
want to be able to want to go to work every day.
Mm.
So for me, like the whole reason why I got into this whole thing was the marketing and the, you know, kind of the sales side of it. And that's what I'm focusing on. You know, I'm not doing day-to-day sales, but I'm doing things that will generate more sales, you know, like not specific to a customer, but in all encompassing, I guess.
I think so. What you're saying is basically, you know, it's important for anybody to find their get-to job and not their
Right.
got-to job.
Right.
Right. When you find a get-to job, then that's a place you can be happy doing whatever it is that might be. And so I would encourage shop owners to look for parts of their business that they get to do, right? But you know, once those important things like sales and stuff, and then find the areas where you enjoy it, and then you know, find other people that are passionate about the things that you're not passionate about, or enjoy the things that you don't enjoy, whether that be printing or artwork or sales or accounting, or you know, building out a team's not easy. You know, it's easy to say and really hard to do.
Right.
But
Well, I got one more question for you
Yep.
before we get to quick takes. But seeing that you kind of have the special thing that not a lot of people get to do is see the whole world market as far as like screen printing and all this other stuff. What are you seeing that's the big difference between here and there that maybe we're lacking on and maybe they're lacking on, or where this industry is going next? Because we did talk about transfers, we talked about DTF, we talked about screen printing. Do you think seeing the whole thing that we're headed for something different, or that we could kind of get a leg up on, or we're good where we're at, or
as
what?
far as like, you know, so the U.S. market, you know, whether it be onshoring, right, bringing back, I will say that at least in the factory, a lot of factories I've been to, and certainly my factories here in the States when I was here, is our quality tolerance. Our quality is, for the most part, way below what comes out of a lot of these Asian factories. And again, it's like if you had your customer there looking over your shoulder while you're printing, you would be able to up your.
I think honestly that's a huge thing. Like if we had more people being held accountable for these things, rather than just saying,
but then can you charge
it's a tolerance,
for it, right?
It's a tolerance.
I mean, who's coming to work for you today these days less than $15 an hour? I mean, you know, that's $35, 50, yeah, it's, you know, $32,000 a year plus 15% benefit to FICA. I mean, you're at $36,000 to $40,000 a year, just kind of entry level now in the States at $15 an
Right.
hour. So justifying hiring somebody to do that, if your customer's not demanding it, right? That's the thing. We're meeting our customer standards here in the States for custom apparel. I mean, I'm just like the rest of you that, you know, some funny shirt comes across my Instagram feed, and damn, I got a Shopify login, and that takes 3 clicks, and that thing's coming in the mail. And I think it's funny as hell when I get it, and I wear it a few times and get a good
Right.
laugh from my wife, who probably finds it offensive, but you know, it is. But the quality of it's just a DTG, right? And so that works for that. You know, the quality is certainly different. You know, the brands who would want to come back here would need to make probably some concessions on what their quality expectations are. Believe it or not, coming out of U.S. factories, because it's just not. We can churn it out. We can print things in the States. I mean, my stuff coming out of my factories is people don't believe when I tell them this. You know, it's 20 to 30 cents for a location, right? I mean, it's not like we're over there printing for a nickel. I'm not printing for 3 cents. I'm not printing for 8 cents. You know, so we're there price wise. Our efficiencies with our machines and our automations and you know.
So because of the cost of labor here, we can't invest as much of the profits that we would want into quality.
Also, what about
control.
Testing? You also need to build a lab, Dylan, because when that panel comes off, it's got to go over there and get those wash testing done, and the crock tests, and the, you know, color fastness to heat, iron. You know, these long list of tests. You've got to have a lab department to where, you know, 5 pieces of every 1,000 printed goes in there every
Right.
time to get checked. And then logistics. This is what we talked about ego jobs earlier. One of the things that people always underestimate here in the States is the amount of things that have to happen before you print the job and after you print the job. Very few people have a good grasp on what that cost is. Whether it's whoever you're paying to go out and order the blanks online, they're having to go to 4 different distributors because they can't fill the sizes from 8 different warehouses. They're going to come in over 4 different days. Somebody in receiving has got to be able to keep track of that. You got to get them out, count them, check them in, label the boxes, stack the boxes, stage the boxes. All this stuff that's got to happen before you ever even get to press. How many people have to touch that order? The printing part's the easy part. Then it comes down the dryer. We stack and we put them in a dozen or a bundle of a dozen, or we individually fold and bag them. But if you're any sort of retail, you've got to get a hang tag on there, right? You've got to get a hang tag right there under this seam through this spot. That's where there are certain parts of our stuff that can't be automated. There's hanger programs, right? Kohl's. Most products that go to Kohl's ships to them on a hanger, right? So you've got to put each of these garments into a hanger and then into their box. And then you've got to have the label correctly in the right spot. It's got to be 1 inch from the left, 1 inch from the bottom. If it's not, they're going to charge you back $100 a box for everyone that's wrong. You got to have somebody manually put those hangers in there. So we can compete price-wise on the printing part of it, but there's still so much logistics on the front and back end that are very manual that that's always going to be a challenge. We can automate as much as we can, but some of it's still going to be difficult to automate. We pipe dream, stuff that I can see coming down. So we talked about how we've got these rolls of fabric, right?
Before you get to the next thing, I just have to say that you gave me anxiety talking about all that kind of stuff. Like if I had to if the label is not like in the right spot on a box and they're going to charge me back $100, I mean, and the hanger's going into here and the hang tag has to be. Well, dude, though, I mean, it's just so.
It'll put you out of business. I mean, you do one order for a Kohl's or a Nordstrom, and it's not just T-shirts. It's my wife's a fragrance buyer. She onboards a new fragrance company. She sends them the routing guide. Every retailer has a routing guide. And, if it's Nike, Adidas, or Under Armour, if they're selling to Nordstrom, they've got to meet Nordstrom's routing guide. The boxes are this sizes. They're packaged this way. The UPC's here. This is the price. This is our barcode, which is going to be different than Macy's barcode, right? Which is going to be a completely different routing guide. Well, whoever Nike, Adidas, or Under Armour, whatever factory they're using to produce the goods for these retailers, the factory's the one that's got to figure out how the packaging is. And it can be different for every PO. It's not like Adidas is coming to you and giving you, here's 100,000 pieces, produce them. It's 100,000 pieces of the same thing, but it could be across 1,000 different POs, shipping to 1,000 different places.
And they all
have 100 different routing guides.
Right.
With 400 different UPC codes and 7 different prices, and a Karen content label for Japan, which is different than a Karen content label for the European Union, which is different than a Karen content label for North America.
You have anxiety still?
So, yeah, and then you do the wrong guide, and then on 1,000 shirts or on your scale, 15,000 or something, then charge back.
Oh, we're not Young One's perfect. We've never once screwed up for a customer. But if we did, obviously it's making it right? Just like where we started this conversation, and it's not just printing. It's, oh my God, we shipped 40,000, outerwear jackets with an FOB price of $45, a retail of $200. They shipped across the Atlantic in the middle of, they shipped across the Pacific.
My fucking watch.
In the middle of July.
My watch just came up with a thing. I don't know if you can see it. It says stressed out from holiday shopping.
Your blood pressure's up.
Ship a container across the Pacific in the middle of July. And it gets to be 145 degrees inside that container with 80% humidity. And it comes over there, and the plastic bags that you use to package those things had the plastic bag manufacturer change their recipe so that at that temperature and that humidity started off-gassing some horrible fume that smelled like ass. And suddenly 40,000 garments in there, when they open up the container, they smell terrible.
This never happened, right?
This never happened, but I'm sure it happened to somebody. And so how do you trace that back, right?
Yeah.
How do you figure out where that happened? But you figure it out, and at the end of the day, you make it right. Whether, you try to be the Nordstrom of the garment industry, I guess. So, well, look, hey guys, I know you've go ahead and you got one. We want to do quick takes, I think.
Yeah.
Okay, let's do it.
Like we can go on and on. We can.
Is this yes or no? I can just done like a little yes or no thing. No, we can. I've got maybe about another 20 minutes. I'll talk about whatever you guys want to talk about.
No, we're good.
Yeah, I have the first one. So quick takes. It's just we ask a question and you give us a quick take. Yeah,
personal answers.
I'll try to I'll try to work on my brevity.
How do you start your day?
Wall Street Journal. Well, I get my daughters to school.
The actual paper or app?
Actual paper.
So old school, like.
no, physical paper. I get to walk out to my driveway, grab a physical. I'm sure there's plenty of people hearing that and just I got okay boomer comments coming at me. But I like my paper. I like my paper and a coffee.
Do you have a real wood burning fireplace?
No.
I was going to say, because then it's perfect because you can use that as you roll it up. My grandfather and I used to do that to start your fire. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. I remember doing that. So no, news, whether it be Wall Street Journal or any other, I'm a news junkie. I just love kind of absorbing all that after I have a nice cup of coffee.
Any good movies, shows, or books that you're into right now?
I got a book. Absolutely. It's sitting here on my desk. Shows. My wife and I, we just finished White Lotus. And before that was, we loved Andor. We were all.
I just started Andor. I had started it before and then I fell off and then I rewatched the first episode yesterday so I can start it again. Did you watch White Lotus season 2?
Yeah, we watched both. Okay. We've seen both. So we just actually finished last episode last night. And then of course House of Dragon. Man, that was appointment television. Right? I mean, we were Sunday night. It's amazing how we were able to get the kids in bed on time when we had a vested interest in something.
Well, that's the nice thing about HBO is that you can just start it whenever you want.
I know, we just couldn't wait to watch it. So it's been, movies, I don't know, man, with a 2 and 4 year old, it's tough to carve out that much time. I will be, I think my wife, we will be probably going to see Avatar in the theater. We just figure out how to do it.
Came out yesterday.
Yeah. Get a babysitter or something. So
what's the book?
This is what you folks. So I actually talked about. I brought this out so I could actually. Because I mentioned this at Print United, but this is I would say, if you haven't read this book, read this book.
The Goal.
It's called The Goal, and it's a business book, but it reads. Like kind of like a novel, right? So it's telling the story of this this factory manager, and it's fiction, but then it's this guy, I can't even pronounce his name, Mr. Goldratt, but it's basically a process of continuous improvement.
I see it says on their 30th year anniversary.
Yeah, it's an old book. It's an old book, but it just uses some fabulous kind of real world examples that he describes in layman terms. That no matter what size business you are, you can kind of take that principle and easily apply it to certain things, and so that is a must read.
Nice. I'll look and see if they have the audio version.
So yeah, I did set it here just to be sure that we could. Dylan, you can actually buy. They come in what's called a paperback, and you can have it on your nightstand, and you can just kind of
I can't do it. I just can't.
No, I hear you. That's most books that I know.
We had a book club a year ago or something. We did a book a month for a shirt show, and we did 12 books. And I think Dylan bought every book.
I have a copy of every book,
just
but
to have
I did audio
the nostalgia of it or whatever, you know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
But you listened to everyone. I don't think you read any of them.
No, fuck no.
Well, hey, this comes out the day after Christmas. So what's your favorite Christmas present you've ever gotten?
Yeah. Man,
That Santa behind him.
That's it. Yeah. You know, Dylan, you've got an alien there over there that kind of keeps grabbing my attention. So
This one?
yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, that guy.
You don't want to see what's under his shirt.
I don't. My favorite Christmas present. Man, I don't. Probably. I mean, it's got to be. I mean, my wife. I hope she can't hear me. But I think first of all, once you have kids, you kind of stop buying presents for each other. But probably.
Well, it could be from when you were a kid. Yeah, it could be from when you were like first grade or something.
I was a big gamer, right? I would love building my own gaming PCs back, 2005 to 2010. So, I'm sure it was probably one year where either I or my dad or somebody, kind of bought a whole new rig, all the parts. Right? Went down to a place in Texas called Altex. Went down there and just, man, I would love leaving there. CPU and the motherboard and the RAM and the case and all the parts. And I'd come back and inevitably I'd screw it up and I'd have to get online to figure out what I did wrong, and just love that whole process. So it was probably something like that. As a kid, man, it got to be some G.I. Joe toy. I was really big into G.I. Joe, so I mean, it had to have been something with G.I. Joe. But
what's something random that brings you joy?
Something random. Oh, my physical copy of the Wall Street Journal. I guess it's unique these days. I enjoy mowing the yard.
Hell yeah. We're best friends now.
Yeah, I just I like working. I like working in the yard, and I always have. Not just as I've gotten older, but there's something about look back and very quickly kind of see what you've accomplished.
Yeah.
Right? So
I fully agree with you, and it's like therapy. Like, you're by yourself. It's just the noise of the mower. You get it done. It looks great. You feel proud of yourself for 10 minutes.
I like getting my car washed. And it's just so random, but like I have like some subscription service, right? So I can just go down there as much as I want. Pay like $30 a month. And I just really like going to get my car washed. Sometimes I do it twice in the same day. I don't know why. Just getting my money's worth, I guess. But
he has a free, it's $30 a month. You could do it unlimited. And so he goes every hour. He goes like 10 times.
Yeah, well, you were just
this guy again.
I had a bug on the way out. Got to go again.
They're losing money on you.
Yeah, seriously. They're like,
that's random enjoyment. Good meals. Andy. Good meals. Sushi. Man, I'm a big sushi guy.
Yeah, here. So that's the last question. There you go. What's for dinner?
Well, not sushi tonight. So what is going to be for dinner tonight? Probably spaghetti. It's a Friday night. It'll be popcorn and movie night. My girls are just now getting old enough to where and it's cool. I look forward to these kind of. I'm a big routine
Christmas
guy.
movie.
Yes, absolutely. Got any recommendations? Something kid friendly? Die Hard's the greatest Christmas movie of all time.
Yeah,
there's too young for that.
There's this one on Netflix called Klaus that I really liked. That's like an animated one that I thought was pretty cool.
Check it out. Okay.
Of course, Elf. You've got to say
yes.
I hate Elf.
I like
you
Elf.
suck. Of course,
I hate Elf more than anything.
I like Polar Express. I think my girls like Polar Express
is good.
So, well, hey guys, look, I appreciate it, man. It was great to get to know you guys better, and
yeah, dude, thanks for coming on.
Shooting the proverbial.
I feel like we could have easily talked for another couple hours.
Yeah.
Are you going to be in Long Beach?
I will. Are you guys doing a live show there?
We're doing a couple, but I mean, just hang out.
Yeah, I should be.
A ton of shows, but it's nice that one time is just nice to get with everybody.
This one's going to be. Did you guys go to Print United?
Mm-hmm.
We did, yeah.
That was the best Print United I've seen maybe ever. Even back when it was SGIA, it was.
Yeah, that's what we were saying too.
And I suspect Long Beach is going to be the equivalent of that, the screen printing, right? I mean,
yeah.
Last year was. 2019 was huge, and then we all took 3 years off. Last year's was.
It came back last year, but there was still a scare. Like I remember, I think COVID, there was some sort of surge right before it happened. And so I think a lot of people were going to go and then they didn't go. So it's going to be
big. Absolutely. Listen to this day after Christmas. You still got time to book your tickets. January 20th to the 22nd. Full circle. That's the first trade show I ever went to 20 something years ago. And I've been hooked. I actually looked at their floor plan the other day. Completely full. Back, they're spilling over into the arena. just like they used to. So it's going to be,
hell yeah,
it's going to be awesome. So I'm planning on going. I'll ping you and let you know for sure, because I'll probably head to Asia from there. I just fly out from LAX and head over to Korea. So,
well, thanks, Jeffrey. We appreciate it, man.
Yeah, enjoy your spaghetti, Dylan. You enjoy your soup. I know that you're a soup guy.
That's
for sure. And I think I'm having pizza tonight. So
it's Friday.
Paul Newman, I'm telling you, move off to Red Robin. You're gonna like it.
So it's Red Baron, first of all, and it's amazing.
Red Robin burgers, yeah.
Oh, that's it. Yeah. All right, guys. See y'all later.
Later, dude.
All right, bye.